Welcome back to episode 66 of Warrior's Den. I am excited for this one because it's one of my old instructors, Marcus Torgerson, who is now a E3 with IKMF, and he's on their global instructor team, so he goes all over the world and teaches Krav Maga for them. But first, this podcast is brought to you by Urban Tactics Krav Maga, based out of Metro Vancouver. If you want to train with us, you can check out us out at urbantacticskm.com. Of course, there are some restrictions right now, as many of you may know, but shoot us a message if you want to come and train. You can also check us out on Urban Tactics Krav Maga on Instagram, Urban Tactics KM on Twitter, though that's more of a mirror of our other posts, and Urban Tactics Krav Maga on Facebook. There are many ways you can help support this podcast. You can, of course, go to utkmblog.com, utkmblog.com, and you can hit the support button on the menu, and that will give you several options how you want to support us in these trying times. Of course, many martial arts schools are struggling, and digital is the way to go, so I've done that. But if you like this podcast, you like our content, you can support us in three ways. You can go to utkmblog.com and hit support us, /support us. You can simply donate money like that. But I'm not delusional, and I know a lot of people don't like to just do that. But if you do, as some already have, thank you very much. You can simply donate whatever, one time, monthly, yearly. The more we have coming in, the more variety of content I can provide. For those of you who want something more tangible, you can go to UTKMU.com. That's the online website that I set up during COVID to provide Krav Maga content as I teach it. Currently, the beginner and novice curriculums are up there in full. Still some little minor editing to do, but it's mostly up there. And the more I get support and the more you can, more content I can do. I'd love to do more with that website, but time is limited these days, so the more people that support us, the more I can do. And that website is meant to supplement either your Krav Maga training with UTKM or just to give you a different perspective or approach for curriculum or Krav Maga in general. It's meant to go as a supplement to working with your Krav Maga instructor. The curriculum there is as I teach it from all my training and different experiences. So if you want to get some perspective on how we approach things, you can go to utkmu.com and check out our beginner and novice curriculum. Hopefully by the end of this year, the advanced curriculum will be up as well. And then you just hit membership and you can get into it under the pricing tab. Sorry on that one. Another way you can support this podcast is you can go under the support us tab on utkmblog.com. Is a bunch of affiliate links for Amazon, mostly books. Perhaps I should put the book that Marcus was on up there. Talk about that in a sec. And a few other products that I personally use. I'm not going to put stuff up there I don't personally use. But if you want to get some of the stuff I use, like Four Sigmatic Coffee or True Niagen supplements, you can click on the Amazon links. And of course, that will be great support to the podcast. So option 1, simply donate money. Yay. Option 2, sign up for a paid membership at utkmu.com and see what we're all about. Or option 3, you can go to the affiliate links I have posted and purchase something that is there. Any of those is fine. Of course, if you're in Metro Vancouver and want to train with us, again, urbantacticskm.com for that website, UTKM blog for all my general ramblings, the older episodes of this podcast, by the way, because the only 10 are listed up there. So if you want to get the older episodes, you can see on utkmblog.com under podcast, and you see all the old episodes I have put up. So Marcus Torgerson is IKMF and is one of my old instructors. Now he has a new website. We talked about it later on. MarcusTorgerson.com. That's MarcusTorgerson.com. And the tagline of the website is "Walk with peace in your heart, love in your soul, and violence in your head." And it was brought about, as we discussed, because he was featured into a book called 100 Deadly Skills, Combat Edition. He collaborated with Clint Emerson, a retired Navy SEAL. So you can check out that book through his website and the variety of things Marcus has contributed to. There's some videos etc. You can even buy some t-shirts off of Marcus's website, including the one he was wearing during the podcast, Hunt Your Local Pedophile, which is always funny. Well, pedophilia not, but the t-shirt, yes. And of course, Marcus being a fan of Batman, some other stuff. So you can always support Marcus by going to his website and check it out and support him. So we talked about a lot of things. We, both me and Marcus are the kind of guys that are all over the place. So talk about attitude, Krav Maga, martial arts, life, what's going on in the world. This one's not too political for those of you who hate my politics. You don't have to worry on this one. It's not so political. We kept it fairly neutral. But here it is nonetheless. Marcus Torgerson. Krav Maga is not just a self-defense system. It is a way of life. Warrior's Den is a podcast for Kravists, fighters, martial artists, warriors, politicians, and general citizens. Consider this. The society that separates scholars from its warriors will have its thinking done by cowards and its fighting done by fools. Lucidity. Your host, Jonathan Fader, talks to guests in an open and uncensored format about their fights, their philosophies, and their lives. No topic is taboo, and the conversation may start in one place and end in another. As the quote suggests, you cannot separate the warrior from the politics and the world around them, as a true warrior must be a student in all forms of art and science.
You're listening to The Warrior's Day. Brought to you by Urban Tactics Krav Maga, turning lambs into lions.
So I am here with Marcus Torgerson, IKMF Expert 3 now, right?
Correct.
Good. I did my research today. And actually Marcus is one of my older Krav Maga instructors, and I did a lot of my earlier training with him. So how are you?
Well, it's a blast from the past. I'm excited for this opportunity.
Yeah, of course. It's hard keeping track nowadays with everyone. If it wasn't for Facebook, I would probably lose track of everyone.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
Yeah,
100%.
So I thought we'd start with your extensive martial arts background, because you started quite young, and you're on the global instructor team for IKMF. So let's just go way back when and start with the beginning.
The beginning. Well, 1979. I was 10 years old and started with Kung Fu. Like most kids, it's either Kung Fu, karate, or Taekwondo. That's what everybody starts with.
Yeah.
And then I did that for a bunch of years. When in my mid-20s, I started doing a system of karate called Weichiru. Did pretty good with that. Got to second-degree black belt in that. And then took some time off. And 15 years ago, decided I wanted to be a student again. That didn't turn out. I ended up not being a student. I ended up going right into pretty much after 3 months of school in Vancouver doing Krav Maga. I ended up going to Israel and becoming an instructor. And 15 years later, here I am with my boy, Jonathan.
Yeah. What, if you don't mind me asking, what were you trying to study?
I was trying to study Krav Maga. But I just didn't feel right. Something about the school and just the way that it was going just didn't feel right. Yeah. And I found out that they had nothing to do with Israel.
Yeah.
Which, for me is a big deal.
Yeah.
So found the IKMF, and it's been a roller coaster ever since.
Yeah. Was there any particular reason at the time you picked IKMF over or other organizations?
Well, there wasn't. I mean, there was really only two organizations. It was Worldwide and then IKMF.
Yeah.
And they were the ones on the internet that my girl that I was dating at the time, we popped up, and they were the ones to rock and roll with.
Yeah. That was, sorry, my mind is blank. I'm getting old too. When was that you joined them?
2005.
2005. Yeah, so KMG wouldn't have been around, and
No.
IKMA wasn't very well known. Yeah.
Well, IKMA wasn't out of Israel, right?
At the time?
Very, very few. Not in North America for sure.
Yeah.
And, and maybe a few people in Europe, but for the most part, they were still internal to Israel.
Yeah. That's I especially when when I have been to America, I think discussing the various Krav Maga organizations gets super confusing for a lot of people, and of course,
Yeah,
the politics, as with any martial arts, is always fun.
yeah. I'm glad I'm old now, because I can basically say, to hell with politics. I have no time for it.
Yeah,
I have no need to argue with it anymore. I'm done with that.
yeah, getting to that age. So uh, you were in Vancouver for a long, long time, right?
Almost all of my life. Yep.
Yeah.
With the exception of the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because you have extensive nightclub experience in this
I
wonderful
do.
city.
I do. I'm many decades of that.
Yeah, yeah,
And I miss parts of Vancouver. There's things about Vancouver I miss. I miss mostly my friends.
yeah.
The ones that are still alive. I miss them very much. But not gonna lie, I'm happy in Arizona. It's
Yeah,
very good for me right now.
it's a lot warmer, I imagine, than here. We're getting as cold as it's been in Vancouver in a long time.
Yeah, no, I'm in flip flops and shorts.
Oh, I
So
wish.
yeah,
And to hunt your local
yeah.
pedophile shirt. People won't be able to see it because it's audio only.
No, they can't see it, but yeah. There's got to wear that. Put a
No,
smile on my face.
yeah, of course. So, how did the bouncer nightclub experience contribute to your IKMF? Because I know you've been mentioning some books about it, uh, and
Yeah,
other interviews and whatnot.
yeah. Good question. The one thing that being in a bar, and you've been in a few bars in your lifetime,
Yeah,
by working them, and then later on now in my life, I get to see. I wish I was doing Krav Maga back then, to be
yeah,
honest with you.
yeah,
It would have made my job a little easier from a combative standpoint.
mm, yeah,
Um, but you definitely see what doesn't work, and then what does work. Uh, Now, because I grew up the way that I did, street fights were a pretty regular occurrence.
yeah. Back
So
in
I already had a
Vancouver.
really good idea of
Yeah,
what doesn't work.
yeah.
So
Different times, like when I grew up, that wasn't too much a thing unless you got involved into the gang thing. But then I hear, guys your age that I know who talk about East Vancouver in the 70s and 80s, and it was a very
yeah,
different.
way different time. Way different time. I mean, now East Van's a fucking hippie
Yeah,
central. I walked by my old area. I was like, my goodness, man, there's more vegan restaurants than I've seen in my lifetime.
it's changed. Yeah, there's always
Yeah,
a part of me.
gentrified.
There's always a part of me that's like, I should check out Texas or something. But uh, if you ignore people that you don't agree with in Vancouver, it's a pretty nice place to live. Just sort of keep
Yeah,
to yourself.
yeah, and that's something that when I come back to visit, which as soon as this bullshit's over with
Yeah,
and the borders open up, at the end of the day, that philosophy I think should be the whole world will. If you just don't get into it with people that disagree with you, just let them be.
yeah,
Your life is going to be better in general.
yeah.
It should be a lot fucking less stressful. Sorry, hey, I forgot about the swearing.
No, you can
My
totally
bad.
swear. This is listed as explicit. I don't care.
Okay, good. Because trying to find a bunch of words where fuck, shit, and damn usually come in better.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's
No, I'm
good.
with you. I believe in authenticity, and it's like there's that guy. I don't know if you know Gary V at all.
Of course, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Gary
I
V,
find
man.
I find him very like he's not my kind of person, but what I love about him is his like I swear, stop telling me not to swear. I'm being
Yeah,
authentic. Leave me alone.
yeah, yeah. He was a breath of fresh air for the longest time, and now many people have caught on to the
Yeah.
fact that just being authentic is the way to go.
Yeah, yeah. Well, even I find today it's actually hard. People will still tell you don't be authentic, and you're like,
Yeah, yeah.
you know,
Yeah, yeah, and again, I hate bringing up the old guy thing, but it really does play to my advantage right now because for the most part, nobody's really going to tell me a fucking thing
yeah,
because I can pull I'm older than dirt, so fuck you. And
yeah,
I'm not saying that like if I just recently like last month taught a faith-based
Mm.
rescue recovery people, and I didn't swear during the entire teaching
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, know your crowd, right?
Yeah, of
You gotta
course.
know your environment.
Yeah.
But you know me long enough that if I have to hold my tongue for a long time, bad things will happen.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, and that's for sure. Like I relate to that. You know, we'll probably be all over the place on this one, but like for, mental health, like I've battled some stuff in my life, and when I was on SSRIs for a few years for depression,
mhm,
I
mhm,
noticed my brain's capacity to censor was
mhm.
was there, but
Yeah,
I didn't want to be on them for a long time because they're not
no,
meant for that. They're meant for just this
no,
healing process.
like a little,
Yeah.
just a little short burst. Yeah,
And I tell my girlfriend now. She's like, "Why can't like if you're with people, just don't say those things." I'm like, "I can't. It's compulsive. Do you want me to go back on
yeah,
meds?" Like that's the only way.
yeah,
you know?
yeah. And again, as long as you're not being disrespectful to the person, right? Which is all that matters. If you're
Yeah,
being true to you, then who gives a shit about anything else?
yeah,
Love me for who I am, and be gentle with my mistakes and fallacies.
yeah. Pretty much. I find
Yeah,
like I swear when I'm teaching, unless it's like a little kids class, obviously, because usually parents don't take kindly to that. But I'll
yeah,
swear, and you get occasionally a student that comes in and they just give you a weird face because they
yeah.
they have this expectation of what a martial arts instructor is
Of
supposed to
course.
be like, and
Yeah.
some people are like totally taken aback and they hate it, and some people are like, okay, I guess that's that. And the way I approach that in teachings, particularly adults, is if you can't handle me swearing in class, how are you going to handle a conflict where someone is screaming
Yeah.
at you?
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. And when you're especially with kids, I mean, obviously the age is appropriate, but you're getting kids that are 10, 9, 10, 11 years old, and they're being subjected to things now with social media and the internet and just other kids in general that are so advanced to when you were a kid or I was a kid.
Yeah,
You can't put them in a bubble anymore. It just doesn't work. They're gonna
yeah.
get killed.
The internet, like I remember back in my day, you could totally talk to a stranger on the internet without having to worry too much. And now,
Uh,
now everyone's screaming at each other, and all the
yeah.
incidents are occurring. Now,
Yeah, no, that's ridiculous.
how's it been in the last few years to be in America? As a Canadian, there, it's been quite a wild ride down there.
Yeah, yeah, it has been. But and I get this a lot from both sides. Like Canadians asking me about being an American, and then I get Americans asking me about Canada. And the facts are this, that when it comes to religion, politics, those two things alone,
Mm,
it's not exclusive to one country or another for a bunch of dipshit assholes.
yeah, yeah.
So, you know, there's things about Canada that I'm not really fond of as a
Me too.
country, right? But I still bleed a Canadian. I'm still Canadian,
Yeah,
and there's things living here in America that I'm not a big fan of. And hopefully this year, I'll get my naturalization to be an American citizen, which
right.
I'm very excited for.
Yeah,
You know, a country is not the sum of its problems. It's the people and the mentality. And every country has fucked up idiots in its country.
yeah,
So you can't, and I get this a lot. Oh, America's this and the president that, and your laws are this. I'm like, look, man, turn the mirror back to your own country and look
yeah,
how fucked up it is with how you deal with things.
yeah,
Before you start shitting on other countries, take a look in the mirror.
yeah,
And I would say that to all my Canadian friends,
yeah.
especially right now, look in the mirror before you
Yeah.
start throwing shit.
Oh, I 100% agree. It's hard for me to avoid politics because it's like my thing. But when I'm teaching self-defense, if someone comes in and says Vancouver is such a dangerous city, I'm like, no, it's not. Like, have you traveled in the world?
Yeah.
Even downtown East Side, people complain it's not that dangerous compared to even a lot of American cities where they have major homeless problems. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, I find we're extremely educated, yet, and to be unfair, I found this in Israel too, is that people don't really understand other cultures and other countries and other rules as well
Right.
as they think they can. And from like a self-defense perspective, I'm like, oh yeah, you think those little kids are just being friendly? No, they're robbing you right now. And if you
Yeah.
go with a Canadian mentality, you're gonna get screwed over in a lot of places
Yeah.
that you travel. You know?
Yeah. Without a doubt. And I think there's that misunderstanding also that all Canadians are friendly, right? There's that.
Yep.
Hey man, I get it a lot. I'll say something and I'll get from somebody, regardless of whether it's in this country or another one, they're like, wow, I thought Canadians were friendly. I'm like, you're retarded. To sit there and generalize an entire culture, that's like saying that all Israelis are good people.
Yep.
Right? Come on, man. There's fucking assholes everywhere. It doesn't matter whether it's Israel or I'll give you a perfect example. So back in the day, it used to be Vancouver was really nice and understanding, and Toronto was filled with assholes. That was like the whole thing. I've come home to Vancouver, had numerous altercations verbally with people who are just fucking being losers. I go to Toronto and I'm having the best time of my life, filled with a bunch of cool people. So like these small-minded ways of thinking just frustrate the shit out of me.
Oh yeah. I'm always like, look at the facts. Like if you're gonna take one source of information, look at the opposing side and see what's sort of in the middle, and you'll start to see what's going on. And it's the way I teach Krav Maga is a lot different than it used to be, because I think we're in a globalized world and Vancouver's relatively safe. My approach to teaching self-defense in general now is, okay, I'm going to teach you the physical stuff because that's what you're here for, but I want to teach mentally how to critically think, and are you being lied to, or you travel politics in the world a little bit. People don't like that too much, but I'm like, hey, who likes to travel? Canadians. Like, where are you going? Like, are you going to Myanmar right now? That's probably not a good idea.
Right. Yeah. I'm right there with you. I think that when you start talking about self-defense and teaching, the hardest part to get people to grasp is the number one reason why they're taking the classes in the first place. You're taking them because you don't want to get your ass kicked. You have gotten your ass kicked. And there's a lot of emotional and well, let's just say there's a lot of emotional garbage that comes with why you're coming to learn. Yeah. So to not access that and just, okay, here's some burpees and some punches and some kicks, and here, defend against this knife attack. Like I'm happy to hear you say that, because you're not giving your students the best version of you if you're not touching on those subjects.
Yeah. And it's certainly uncomfortable, especially in a city like Vancouver. If you touch on certain topics, they kind of get like, and you're like, okay, as you mentioned, people come in with issues. They got assaulted. I've had women and men who've been assaulted before, and you can tell they're uncomfortable. And my hope is that, to me, Krav Maga is an exposure therapy. The more you get exposed, it's a relatively safe environment. Your nervous system will calm down. But sometimes it's maybe you're not ready for this yet. It's not your stage of healing. Unfortunately, I don't know what it's like down there. Therapists here are really lazy and never reach out to me. And obviously I can't reach out to them, but they obviously have to talk with the client. And I've talked to my people before. I'm like, hey, have your therapist talk to me. Never do. Right?
No.
And they never want to do it.
No. And if having spoken to several therapists, their confidentiality is what they use as their excuse. But at the end of the day, they just don't want to fucking know. They don't care.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's the beautiful part about, obviously, I would say Krav Maga, but martial arts in general, or any martials type of sciences, it is the best therapy you could ever ask for. If let's say you have anxiety about being in groups, well, after, a few months of taking classes, that goes away pretty quick, because if you're doing jujitsu and you're rolling on the ground with one guy, and then you're doing Shark Tank, and then you got to fucking, or shark bait, or whatever the fuck it's called, whenever you're going over and over and over, you can't have anxiety about groups, because it's being dealt with regardless. Therapists, I don't even get me started on that. I mean, there's some great ones, like there's some great martial arts instructors, there's some great police officers, there's some great everything, but the assholes, holy Jesus, is there a lot of those?
Oh yeah. And I don't know if you're aware, I went to school for psychology, right?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so part of, I thought, I'm dealing with some stuff. I want to learn about the human mind. And going to school as an older person, I'm not that old. I started when I was 25, I think.
Yeah.
And it's it's already a huge gap. And I started to learn that a lot of the people who go into therapy or psychology don't even sort out their own shit before they're already
Yeah.
advising other people.
Yeah.
And one of the things they teach is don't associate with your disorder, right? You don't walk around saying, I'm John, I'm depressed, or I am John, I have anxiety. And
Right.
ironically, that's what I find all of these students and new generation therapists doing. And it's like,
Yeah.
you're doing the thing that all the research shows not to do. And,
Right.
that's why I think we have this society now where, like, I have anxiety, you need to treat me this way. It's like, no, you need
Yeah.
to figure your shit out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I agree 1,000,000%. And I think the truth is that you get a bunch of people who are not dealing with their shit.
Yeah.
And it's always easier for me to point something at you, or was that old one finger at you, pointing back at me?
Yeah.
But it's easier for me to point at you and shit on you for all your whatever shit you got going on,
Yeah.
and making myself feel better as a result of it. You know what? I don't think that that's changed since,
Forever.
forever. Yeah. I'm pretty sure, there's people walking around 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 800 years ago doing the exact same bullshit. We're just so immersed with the ability to have, the internet. Everybody's got a fucking opinion, and nobody's getting punched in the face.
Yeah.
Right? I go and tell you, hey, Fader, you know what? I think your fucking beard is stupid and you're a loser. Well, it's easy for me to do that now, right? I'm on the phone with you.
Yeah.
You can't hit me, can't do anything. Let me see, say it to your face. And then all of a sudden you're like, well, I'll tell you what, smash, headbutt to the face. Oh, well, and I'm not talking about bullying behavior. Like, everybody should have the right to express how they feel.
Yeah.
But if my expressing how I feel is in a way to put you down, to push me up, well, then yeah, I got a fucking problem with that, because there ain't no reason for that whatsoever.
Yeah.
Ever. And that's a blanket statement that goes to every aspect of my life.
Yeah. And I think, well, first of all, my girlfriend would agree with the beard comment. I'm growing it out because it's a little cold, but but I think I was thinking about this is that bullying never went away. Like back in your day, and even to degree my day, it was physical, and that was it.
Yeah.
And it just shifted to a culture of bullying, and people don't realize that politicians are bullying you. The internet, Twitter warriors are bullying you, and nobody's addressing this as a bullying problem, as opposed to, oh, this is just politics, and you're wrong. It's like, no, this is a bullying problem right now.
Like there was a thing, I can't even believe it's a thing. I had my roommate actually told me about it, and then it popped up on some of my socials, about a natural roast day where you put something out there and you allow people to roast you. Yeah. And I said this to him. I said, that's the stupidest thing I've ever fucking heard. I can't believe that that's actually a thing. And I can't believe people are encouraging it, because that's the problem that we have with our society right now. I have a very special little girl in my life. She's not little. She's she's like 15 now. And I remember she would post videos of her singing, beautiful voice. And then she would take snapshots of people's responses. They would send her messages. You should kill yourself. Yeah. You're the worst singer ever. Now, obviously, my first instinct was to get the IP addresses for those people and set them on fire. But with the internet being the way it is, I wouldn't want to be a teenager in this day and age right now. You couldn't pay me. You could say, Marcus, I'll give you $1 trillion. And there's no fucking way I'm going through my teen years right now with the way things are. There's no way. I couldn't do it.
Now, that's
I don't know how these kids are able to stay alive.
Yeah, because you've obviously been teaching way longer than me. Have you noticed a difference in teaching teens from today than, say, 10 or 15 years ago?
I've noticed a difference in the people coming to do the instructor courses, right? So you get people that are in their early 20s, mid 20s, their reasons for doing it are, well, they're still the same as they have been forever. When you're starting to get some dialogue with what they had to grow up with, their first thing is, well, the internet, and because I didn't grow up with the internet, right? I had all my other bullshit that I had to deal with. But the fact that everything is whatever you say, it's there forever. You can't delete it. It's never gone forever. Yeah. When they're coming to learn to teach, their whole thought process is different, and I've had to adapt to be a little more empathetic with my teaching, which is a funny word because you've learned from me, you know exactly. Empathy is not something that I'm definitely no sympathy, but empathy is a learned trait for me.
Yeah.
It's a rough fucking go. Anybody who's been alive, you know, in the last 20 years, holy shit, they've had a rough go of it, man.
Yeah. And, you know, it's interesting you talk about that. Like, I am not empathetic either. And for whatever reason, I don't know. I haven't found the source of that. And I have found, like, you know, I left university. I never finished my degree because I can't deal with these, I don't know, pillow people. Like, some of the things they believe and think, I'm like, this is absurd. And I had to leave. It's not even scientific anymore. But, like, some of the things people on the left or some of these ideas, I'm like, they're actually good ideas. They just don't know how to execute them. And the empathy thing, often when it's taught, is taught in the most woo-woo bullshit. And people like you and me do not resonate with that. And I've been trying to work on ways, how can I integrate it into the way I teach? Because that's the way things are going and got to deal with it. And it's like, you know, I take the mental awareness color code, like the Jeff Cooper model. I've integrated that, and I say, you know, all this is what is the word they use? I'm blanking. Mental awareness. There's a word they use I hate in the universities. Mindfulness.
Okay,
I said all this is mindfulness, and but from a combat perspective. And when you reframe it like that, it's all of a sudden not so woo-woo. It's just saying, hey, be aware of your nervous system. What state is your nervous system in? And this will actually help you both in a physical self-defense perspective. If you can calm your nervous system, you can make a better decision. And also, if you're emotionally, you know, traumatized, you can also do it. But if they start talking, you know, hippie meditation and chakras, I'm like, what? I don't even think you know what you're talking about, man.
No, I'm not going to disagree with you at all. I think it's funny that we talk about lefts and rights. And I'm going to go with, you know, a bird is flying, right? It's got a right wing and it's got a left wing, but you need one. You can't fly with just one wing. It's impossible. So you need both of those wings to move in a forward direction. And this world has always been polarized to do two. You know, it's always, is it a Big Mac or a Whopper? Is it Coke? Is it Pepsi? Is it coffee? Is it tea? You know, and then you have the outliers who are like, I like orange juice or whatever, but which is great. But we're always going to have two people that have a difference of opinions on some subject. Where I have a frustration, and this has come in the last probably 10 years, is there is no right and wrong. There's only, well, on one subject only, which we'll get into that. But at the end of the day, your opinion is your opinion, and I can at least listen to it, hear what you have to say. Whether I agree with you or not is not the issue. The issue is I'm going to pay you the respect possible to hear what you have to say. You do the same for me, and then we can just agree to disagree or find a common ground or whatever. This whole fucking like 5-year-old stomping on the ground. No, my way is right. No, you're stupid. All of that stuff is absolutely ridiculous because it is never in history has it ever worked. Ever. So fuck you, and you're pushing your bullshit on me because it's not going to work. Now I feel sorry for the young people who don't have life experience to be able to form their own thoughts, and they're getting their information from fucking Twitter. I'm like, are you retarded? Source out your information. Now, in my opinion, I don't believe anything that comes out of anybody's mouth when it's online, or politicians, or for that matter, anybody who's telling me that it must be this way. When you say must, you're going to lose me because there is no must. The only thing I must do is I don't even have to do this if I don't want to, is to try to live as long as possible. For the one thing that will happen is death. That's the only must, is I know I'm going to die. That's the only certainty. So it's a frustrating time right now, you know, with fucking COVID, and just people in general are so fucking retarded that it's easy. I feel more empathy for introverts now than I think I ever have, because I don't blame you. I'm going to fucking stay in my little castle and I'm just going to watch my fucking movies and to hell with everybody else because they're all fucking losing their treat.
Yeah, yeah. You know, it's funny. I was listening to something and they said only Siths deal in absolutes. You know, the evil people only deal in
Yeah.
absolutes, essentially.
Right.
Yeah, and I think you're right on the introvert thing. Like I've done tests. I measure as extreme extrovert, and yet I've noticed in the last 10 years I don't want to be around people
Right.
because
Yeah.
it's just that's my defense mechanism. Is you know what? My mouth too gets me into so much conflicts with people because I'm like, listen, I don't want absolute. Let's have a discussion, and people get so annoyed when you throw in information they've never heard of. And I just
Yeah.
started being like, you know what? I'm gonna just chill with my girl and be at home and just
Yeah.
leave me alone. I'll go out and teach
Yeah.
and do jujitsu, and that's it. I don't want to deal with any, you know.
Yeah. I agree 100%. Now it's funny because um, people would think that I am an extrovert because of what I do for a living and how I am, but for the most part, I'll be like the life of the party and act like an idiot and do everything like that I need to do. But my gas tank goes empty quick nowadays.
Yeah.
So I'm like, as quick as possible, leave me the fuck alone. I don't want to talk to nobody. I don't want to see anybody. And I find it fascinating how people behave and what the truth of who they really are comes out.
Yeah, and it's funny because when I was younger, I had quite the temper, and it's still there, in there, but I didn't know how to fight. And I was always concerned that I was willing to do the violence, though. So I always kind of removed myself away from it. And now, as you learn, you're like, well, I was willing to be violent back then, and I'm capable of it now. And so, with people like me and you, where we do have mouths, we can't control other people. We don't understand, that thing I said to my friend doesn't bother them, but it might end up in something. And it's just like, I don't want to get with the arguments that could lead to something worse. So I'm just like, I'm not going to do
Yep.
deal with
Yeah,
it.
I'm out of here. I'm out of here. Exit stage right. No, I agree. Honestly, I agree 100%.
Yeah. No, I remember because I was just thinking, how is your jiu-jitsu? Have you been working on it over the years, or is it kind of a side thing?
It's I'm really fortunate that I get to be around some of the best jits people on the planet.
Yeah.
So whenever I'm in a state or in a country where there's a guy or a girl who's doing it, I get on there and roll around a little bit. And mostly just because of the fact that I don't want to end up on the ground.
Yeah.
But if I am on the ground and now see, the funny part is if I'm on the ground, I'm with a guy who's a jiu-jitsu guy, I'm fucked anyways.
Yeah.
So, my go-to is always going to be grotesque violence if I can get a chance.
Yeah.
But the good news is if I'm on the ground and it's just one guy, well, he's either I'm not gonna tap, so he's either gonna put me to sleep or break something.
Yeah.
And there's not much I can do about that. I love jiu-jitsu in the sense of I love the chess part of it, but I'm a checkers kind of guy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So when I start talking to brainy motherfuckers like you, at the end of the day, I'm gonna always be off of the conversation because of the fact that you'll start thinking 3 or 4 steps ahead.
Yeah.
And I'm just not that guy. I deal with now, maybe 5 seconds from now, and then I'm looking for the out.
Yeah.
Right? And that's how I teach Krav Maga.
Yeah.
Deal with now, create an opportunity for escape, and get the fuck out of there. So that, to answer your question, long-winded, I do little bits of it just to make sure that when I'm speaking as authentically as possible about my experience with that subject.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I know when I started Krav, like obviously the strategy is don't go to the ground, stay off the ground, don't go to the ground. Yeah. And I still 100% agree with that. I was exposed to jiu-jitsu and I was like, UFC. It's like, I really want to learn this. It looks cool. And then I did a seminar with a world champion woman, Alana Alaziger. And I just watched this woman like run through 20 grown men bigger than her. And I just had this realization that if everyone is learning grappling nowadays and it's quickly becoming the most popular martial arts globally, wish Krav Maga, but it's not. You could run into a monster, and
without a doubt.
And the Krav Maga might not be enough anymore if you're a fish out of water on the ground. And so, almost a brown belt. I consider myself a gatekeeper grappler. Like, if you don't know what you're doing, I'm going to destroy you. But if you're like a young buck athlete who's just naturally gifted, I'm going to struggle. And then I pull guard and I'm lazy.
Right.
But it's the realization that you need to have a certain level of grappling, even if you don't want to go to the ground. I've trained with white belts who are just freak athletes, and it's like
Yeah.
hitting a freight train.
Yeah.
And I realized I need to get my grappling skills to such just enough that I can hold them off for 30 seconds, so that I can employ my Krav Maga
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
violence.
Yeah.
Um,
I agree. I
yeah,
agree. I think if I could go back in I don't, it is a regret. If I could go back, I would have, when I went and did wrestling in high school,
yeah.
I would have continued with it, because you can say anything you want about jiu-jitsu or whatever. There's no better sport, in my opinion, than
Yeah.
wrestling.
Oh,
There, you
it's
get
one
a
of the
good
top. Yeah,
wrestler,
yeah.
you're fucked.
Oh
You're
yeah,
fucked
I
in
agree.
ways that you don't even know.
Yep.
So, and I've been trying to, while I've been in Texas, I tried it a little bit, and now I'm here in Arizona. I'm trying to find like an over 50s wrestling club that will,
Yeah.
and there's not a lot of them out there. And the guys that are over 50 are usually wrestlers for the last 40 years. I don't want to be with those
Nope.
fucking guys.
Yeah. A good
But
wrestler is a nightmare.
oh yeah,
They're
yeah.
animals.
Oh fuck yeah, yeah. And that's so in a perfect world, I would have wrestled and gotten very familiar with wrestling, because I
Yeah.
just feel that would have made me a more complete fighter, for
Yeah.
lack of a better word.
Oh yeah, like I've actually, my school is more where I do jujitsu is more jujitsu-y, but there's a couple guys who've done wrestling and they're really good wrestlers, and it's like,
Yeah.
man, you actually need to learn that too, because it's a different way of moving, and if you get good at wrestling, you can actually stall out most jujitsu people
Yeah.
a lot, and some of the bigger guys in my club that have their jiu-jitsu skill is equal to mine, but they're bigger than me, and I find actually when I start to try to wrestle them, they struggle,
Yeah.
because all of a
Yeah.
sudden now I'm a little quicker than them. Not that quick.
Yeah.
I have bum knees. I'm early 30s and my knees are already wrecked.
Oh
But
fuck.
it getting that little bit of everything. It comes back to that Krav Maga mentality. Like, learn a little bit of everything and just sort of see what's out there.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that, and there's going to be some students that gravitate towards certain things easier than others, and as long as they're getting a good understanding of all fundamentals of each of those things, regardless of whether it's weapons training, jujitsu, boxing, striking, whatever you want to call it. Where I get frustrated is where they separate. Okay, we're going to do boxing or striking skills, and then we're going to do Krav Maga. There is no fucking striking skills in Krav Maga.
Yeah.
It's all one universe.
Yeah.
So let's stop segregating. I'm a huge anti-segregation guy. I am.
wonder why.
Yeah. Yeah. So and I've had heated discussions with other Krav Maga people who are like, yeah, well, tonight's going to be Krav Maga, and next night is going to be striking. I'm like, why are you separating the two of them? Your Krav Maga people should be lethal with kicks and hits.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a reason why Thai fighters are so effective. Now, am I only about Thai? Fuck that. You get some Savat guy, some French guy that's got feet from fucking Jean-Claude Van Damme Wicked. You're not going to fucking stop that guy, because he can strike with his hands and kick the shit out of you with his feet.
Yeah.
So why separate, man?
Yeah. I totally agree with that sentiment. That's what I've done with my curriculum is you're going to learn boxing, kickboxing, wrestling, judo, weapon stuff in the entire integrated program. I'll still, though, encourage go do boxing, go do kickboxing, go do jiu-jitsu, because we're learning as generalists in Krav Maga, and they may not know what it feels like to be with a pro fighter or a pro boxer or a pro. So I'm like, go train with them. Like, one of my instructors, he does boxing, and when we come around to the boxing stuff, he's a better boxer than me. I'm like, hey, you do some boxing stuff with them, no problem. Because I stick to my basic stuff, 1, 2, 3, 4 hooks, Krav style. But I'm like, you know what? Let's throw in some other stuff to diversify the skill sets. Well, we need to be like, take judo for example. I'm not the biggest fan of judo as a self-defense option in the modern world
No.
because it's too hard to learn. It can go wrong really fast. But I
Hmm.
still teach I teach 4 basic throws because to me they're the most common sort of positional that you'll end
Yeah.
up in. And I
Yeah.
find if you can just teach them the basics, they can defend themselves well enough against a judokan to start throwing
Yeah.
that punch. So you don't
Well,
need
and
to.
again, and again with any Krav Maga mentality, if I know that this person's a judo person, why
Yeah,
the fuck am I gonna sit there and go toe to toe with
yeah,
them in their universe? Like
yeah,
that's stupid.
yeah,
But if I'm on the street and I have three guys and I can toss this one guy in such a way that when gravity hits that cement,
yeah,
he's out of the fight at least long enough for me to go to the next guy or run. Well, fuck yeah, why not?
yeah,
Big sweep the fuck out of them people. It is a hard sport to learn. Now that being said, if we could get, and if you get somebody who's my age, 50 plus,
yeah,
who's never fallen in their life, and you're teaching them in judo how to fall,
yeah,
you're saving them a whole bunch of
right,
fucking lifetime of headaches.
yeah,
Um, and this is where I have a problem with, they're like, well, Marcus, why are you so not big on sparring? I'm not big on sparring because that's not Krav Maga.
yeah,
Krav Maga does not help. Like sparring will help my Krav Maga in the sense of, I can get hit and hit back and not get hurt.
yeah,
But it doesn't help me when there's three guys,
yeah, yeah,
and if I get in the habit of going toe to toe with you and getting my hands up and being ready to fucking bob and weave and think I'm fucking Roy Jones Jr., I'm going to get knocked the fuck out
yeah,
because somebody's going to come from behind and boom, I'm done.
yeah,
But it has value. Sparring has value,
yeah.
right? Fuck.
I'm with you and I'm not with you to a degree. I don't see the obsession with sparring at the higher levels because you should know how to
No.
fight. So for me,
Yeah.
you have to spar at the earlier levels because I've seen what happens to people who've never been hit in their face, and I've seen
Yeah.
what happens to people who don't know their ranges and don't know what's too big for them. So I have my guys spar for the first few years, and then after that, I'm like, if you don't want to spar, I don't care, because you just
Yeah.
need to know your ranges. You need to know you can take a punch and give a punch, and beyond that, it's not that important if you're like a
Yeah.
world class kickboxer.
No, I don't disagree with that at all. I think that if in Krav Maga we have one drill that is the most important drill, if you had to fucking put a gun to my head, the zombie drills.
Yeah.
Zombie drills are the best fucking drills. Now I can take zombie drills, put gloves on, and we can make it a sparring zombie drill.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, your realities are going to be greatly opened
Yeah.
about what you can and cannot do.
You mean I can't
when there's
fight
multiple
5
times.
people who are going 100% for more than a
Yeah.
couple seconds?
Right?
Yeah.
And so I think there's value in going toe to toe with protective gear,
Yeah.
as long as you're willing to accept the fact that when it's time to go, when it's really green light go time,
Yeah.
it's not going to be anything like
Yeah.
what you've experienced on the mat
Yeah.
ever. And
Now-
I think that's the hardest part, to get the student to understand the difference between all the symptomatic issues that happen when you're involved in a real fight
Yeah.
versus any type of training at all on the mat.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, like, that I've found consistently the mental the ability of people to comprehend mentally the difference between a drill, a nervous system thing, a real life, how it applies, is so hard to teach. Like, for example, I had someone in my life who was an amazing Muay Thai practitioner, amazing athlete, and they had their house broken into with guns and knives because someone got the wrong house. Some crackhead lived there before and owed some gangsters money.
Right.
And he did the right thing, was jump out the window and book it.
Yep.
But then our other friend who doesn't know how to fight, got stabbed 3 times. Luckily he survived. But it's talking to a lot of even MMA people or martial artists who in the gym mop the floor with me, but I'm like,
Yeah.
you really understand there's a mental difference between
Yeah.
the real world, and it's one of the hardest things to get people to understand who haven't experienced, that kind. And I have, to be honest, I've had a pretty safe life, but
Right.
for whatever reason, it's in my head like I might have to kill someone. I'd rather run,
Yeah.
and I don't know how you approach teaching that, because I've found that to be, since I've met, obviously, since I trained with you, I find that one of the hardest things to get into people's heads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and so it's by asking a simple question, usually in most of these courses, or, when I had a school for 5 or 6 years in Texas with my ex-wife that, you ask a simple question. Have you ever has violence come to your house? I mean, by house, I mean, has violence come into your life? And then you'll get scales of, well, violence happened when I was in elementary school.
Yeah.
Violence happened when I was a young adult. Violence happened to me when the door got kicked in at 3 a.m. and 3 guys with guns came in.
Yeah.
So and then you have people who have had no violence, none. They're like, no, I've had a charmed life. Okay, well, when I have those different pools of water, I know where I can push buttons to get what I need out of it. The hardest part is aggression and accepting the fact that you are going to be powerless at some point in time in that exchange.
Yeah.
And by powerless, I mean, at some point in time, you're going to freeze or shut down. Now, the difference is, how do we get them to get out of that freeze in the quickest amount of time possible? And that there's no general answer to that. You can't say, well, tonight's class, everybody is going to respond the same way because we're all identical. Physiologically or psychologically, we're all fucked up and we all have different ways, and we have to find our own buttons to push to get past those blocks.
Yeah. Yeah.
But aggression is by far the hardest thing that I've had to teach, because in general, the world has more nice people than bad people.
Yeah.
Right. And the problem is the bad people make the most noise.
Yeah.
And the bad people get the most what they want in this world because of how kind everybody is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've been talking a lot with Tony Blauer.
Oh yeah. I should ask him to come on too. I follow him quite a lot, actually. Yeah.
Oh, he's a fucking legend. Like, he is. And he's a Canadian. So, it's easy to sit there and be able to chit chat with him on he's a little older than me. So if he listens to this, you're a little older, Tony. But now Tony's forgotten more things about the chemical effects to violence and how it applies to human behavior than I'll ever know in my life. Now, he's a smart motherfucker. He opens his mouth and I'm like, Tony, you've lost me, because you're using words this big and you're fucking, like, you're kind of like Stephen Hawking in a way, man. You've got this whole fucking grand scheme of understanding. But I think that all students of any type of martial science or martial behavior should invest time to learning about I don't like using the word psychology, but the mental and chemical aspects of violence when it affects us. Because if you know that, then you don't have the fear of shutting down, because you understand how it works and how you individually can change your response to when that violence happens.
Yeah. Oh, you said a bunch of things I want to break down. I want to go back to a second about the teaching people to be violent. I've actually found, for a variety of reasons, it's more difficult to deal with a student that has too much aggression and violence for whatever reason, because they become a bit of a safety hazard, versus someone who's willing to learn to be violent. Now, I've had students who, like, they just tap the pad. I'm like, you can hit harder, and they have something going on, they refuse. But I've found it's more easy. It's generally better to get people to realize they can be violent than someone who's a little off in the head and bring them down, if you know what I mean.
Right. Yeah. Well, so see, now it's weird, because for me, when I see somebody who is already violent and they're becoming that safety hazard, grabbing them by the fucking throat and saying, listen, you are fucking up everything right now, and you're Mr. Big fucking gorilla tough guy, and you're scaring this person right here. How does that benefit in a team environment? How does that benefit your teammate?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, now I'm not taking ego into it, because ego is a lot of times when you have a huge amount of aggression and you're going to show everybody just how fucking tough you are. You know, at the end of the day, that can be rectified privately and you know, letting them understand where they are in the food chain.
Yeah.
Right. You get a lot of fucking macho tough guys when all of a sudden you close the doors of the office and you're like, okay, let's go. We're going to go right now in this office.
Yeah.
I'm going to show you just how fucking small you are on this planet.
Yeah.
Now that isn't always the right answer.
Yeah.
Very often it's not the right answer. But if you've got somebody who is trying to show just how they're not going to be afraid of violence because they are afraid of violence, right?
Yeah.
That's usually where it comes from. And letting them know that what you're doing is you're now ruining this experience for this man or woman because you want to be a fucking tough guy because you think you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
When you put it in a light where they're like, oh fuck, man, I just basically what my big fucking saying is I just take the blinders off.
Yeah.
And by taking the blinders off, if you're still an asshole after I've taken the blinders off, then you need a punch in the throat and get the fuck out of my school.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is why I'm not in business.
Yeah.
So be in mind, when I say this and any feedback you get from your listeners, like, well, that's really great, but I have a school to run. I'm not saying it's the right answer.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that when you're dealing with somebody who's being a fucking asshole, because I have to ask, why are they doing it? Are they doing it out of fear and insecurity? Or are they doing it out of ego? Like, find the reason why they're being that way and then cut the head off so that they can't do it anymore.
Yeah. I find actually, most students who have the ego issue, they usually self-select and just leave when I've called out their bullshit. I did have one student once who, I'm pretty sure he was a psychopath, but he wasn't tough. Like, I had some of my instructors, like, if that kid comes at me, I'm going to knock him out. I think he ended up stabbing someone a few years later because I had come talk to me because he tried to blame me. And I'm like, what? I kicked him out of my school. What are you talking about? So you do get those crazy sometimes. But it's for the most part, it's just ego, I think.
Yeah, and insecurity is a huge motivator for most of us, right? I'm insecure all the fucking time. Why do you think I do this for a living? Because I'm an insecure man. That's why I'm trying to use it to sit there and become secure. So if you're going to be insecure, that's fine, just not at the expense of someone else.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Fuck you.
Yeah, and that's come up a lot. The whole COVID thing, it's driving everyone nuts. And you know, some schools do better. Some schools, I think me and you are on the same boat. As I'm not going to be inauthentic. I'm not going to water it down. I'm not going to do bullshit. And unfortunately, from a business perspective, it does hurt you a lot. Right? I've run into that. I've butt heads with so many people over the years because I'm like, I'm not doing that, or they want me that you should do it like this, and I'm like, no. So I mean, I think your attitude, I'm gonna just guess, is I don't give a fuck. But it's certain. How do you what I would say for Krav Maga is, like, because there's a lot of people who want to teach it and run a school, and it's fucking hard now, particularly in Vancouver, as you and me both know. It's not the most popular thing here, but how do you resolve the fact that the balancing act? It's really hard, I think, you know.
Without a doubt. Like any business though, if somebody's like, and we cover this in the instructor courses, okay, you want to be an instructor, okay, that's great. That's like this much of the fucking situation. You got like just a tiny little part of it. Well, if you don't know anything about how to run a business, then perhaps you should go and educate yourself on how to run a business. Understand that there's taxes, and understand that there's all these rules and regulations about running a business in your country, wherever that is. Now in Canada, let's just leave it at Canada. You know, you've got insurance issues, finding the proper provider. You've got all these things that are not ever brought up with opening a school. Now I know jiu-jitsu and kickboxing, like everybody's got the same bullshit, but let's just keep it in the Krav Maga world. It's not just enough to want to teach. Right? This is just Marcus's experience for having numerous schools in my lifetime. If you're a shitty business person, which I am, you better align yourself with somebody who is phenomenal at business and somebody who shares a parallel belief system in what your objective is in your business.
Yeah.
My business is the job of empowering others to be a fucking nightmare for bad guys.
Yeah.
Okay, now that doesn't translate into the business world unless I can find somebody who can use the same verbiage and educate me on how I, Marcus, can get to do my mission and still fucking be able to pay the bills at the same time. And that is a balancing act that doesn't just apply to our industry. It applies to everything in general.
Yeah.
You may want to have a skateboard shop. You may be the best fucking skateboarder ever, man. Tony Hawk ain't got nothing on you. But if you are a shithead when it comes to business, it don't fucking matter because nobody gives a shit.
Yeah. Well, I can sympathize with that. I have learned school of hard knocks with business. How I haven't gone bankrupt, I don't know. I've managed to figure it out. But the business partner thing, as far as running, let's talk just Krav Maga school, but martial arts in general, is fucking hard. I think if I was to write a book on business advice, one of the main points is pick your partners wisely.
Yeah. Without a doubt. Yeah.
You know, I've had partners and I've learned business as I go. I've made a lot of mistakes. I'm hoping I'm going to come out of COVID stronger. But if I've partnered with people who don't know shit about business, and then I'm learning business and dealing with people who don't know shit about business and make it worse, it makes things a nightmare. It's taken me years to dig out of that hole. And then you partner with people who don't agree with the way you are approaching teaching or curriculum, or I was big. I want to put it down on paper, and I can't remember that. I'm like, but neither can the students. That's why I want to put it down on paper. You know? And you just end up butting heads all the time, and it's like, I think you kind of said something earlier. It's like, if you just want to teach but you suck at business, maybe don't open up a school. It's really
just
hard.
Go and find somebody who's established and be like, hey man, I want to teach, and rent out a spot or whatever. It's kind of no different than like hairdressers, right?
Yeah.
Hairdressers, you can be the best stylist ever, but if you're shitty at business, maybe you should just rent a chair.
Yeah.
Right. And build your business from that standpoint, because it's a lot more than just fucking throwing palm heel strikes and a kick to the balls and yelling at them. Like it's a big fucking venture.
Yeah.
And know and be honest about what you can and cannot do. I suck at business. I am the worst at business. So I align myself with people who know this about me, and they will, in my better interest, help me down the path of what's better for me in my business.
Yeah.
And it's that simple. And well, I say it's that simple, but it's that simple because I've got fucking decades of fuck ups to show what not to do.
Yeah.
Right.
And, I once said to someone, I would love one day to write a book of how not to write a business. And they're like, John, no one's going to buy that book. I'm like, why? She's like, too negative. I'm like, but that'll save most people so much time.
Yep.
Because they always talk about what to do, but they never talk about what not to do.
Well,
and that saves so much time.
Well, and if you took your book and you took, I don't know, let's say Gary V, right? Because that's the big name. You take Gary V and you both sit there and show what not to do. He's going to say the exact same shit, because at the end of the day, what not to do usually is in the same swimming pool, depending on which verbiage you're going to use. So I think you should write a book on what not to do. And it's not too negative. If I teach you, okay, so you and I are walking down the street and we have a new student, and we're walking down a dark alley, or we're about to walk down a dark alley. And for example, I tell them, go down the alley, and you know what? You'll find your answers on how to deal with self-defense. And you're like, you know what? You should not go down that alley because you suck as a fighter, and you probably should just go this way. My way, the student goes down, they get their ass beat, and they get a great experience on how they fucked up.
Yeah.
Is that really the best answer on how somebody should learn something?
Yeah.
Or is it better to sit there and know, hey man, you're not ready to go down that alley, so maybe you should go this way over here. Yeah. Now, depending on who you talk to, one person will say, Marcus, your way is better than the other way. Experience for me is learn what you can do and what you can't do, and work what you can't do or you're not good at. That's what you should be spending your fucking time on.
Yeah. Yeah.
In business only. I'm just talking about business here. I'm
Mm.
not talking about training in other ways, but whatever you're weakest at, that's what you should be fucking working on. And if you don't want to work on it, then you probably shouldn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I always tell, like, I have another business that we started up with my girlfriend and a friend of ours, and it's like, we need to learn who's good at what and delegate,
Yep.
and I'll do this and you do that, and it's sometimes the hardest thing for people to realize they need to delegate and accepting what you're not good at. Now,
Yep.
I think there's two options because people have different approaches, and some people will say like, "Oh, you need to work on your weaknesses and grow them," and it's like that might be true, but guess what?
Right.
If I have to do 100 things, I don't got time to do that. So
Yep.
I'm gonna focus on what I'm good at, and be
Yep.
aware of what I'm not good at. And I
Right.
find when you tell people that, hey, you're not good at this, and you don't have the time to fix it, please stop, and they just lose it and like, no,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's the
Yeah.
reality,
Well,
I think.
I agree. And I think, and again, when you're talking about a business, opening a business, this, especially a martial arts business, fucking
Hard.
hell, it's almost as bad as opening a restaurant,
Yeah,
right? Just because you can cook doesn't mean that you can fucking run a successful business.
yeah,
And if you can't, and they say stay in your lane, right? That's the big
I don't agree with that,
word.
by the way.
No, well, and I had a guy online fucking sit there and say, Marcus, you should stay in your lane and not do. I think it had to do with teaching law enforcement because I haven't been a cop.
Yeah.
I shouldn't teach law enforcement. I'm like, you know what? I disagree. My life experience, blah, 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 blah. And if I listen to that type of mentality, stay in your lane, then I'd never learn anything.
Yeah.
I'd never go and try something new because I'm only going to be focused on what I'm doing. Now, when it comes to my business, you made a good point. Delegate. If for some reason you're bad at customer service, then we shouldn't have you out front until either A, you change, or which you won't, or you are going to be able to fake it well enough so that you're not having customers leave. But delegating is probably the hardest part because nobody wants to have a certain role that maybe their ego feels is not good for them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now you're an outgoing guy, so maybe, saying, hey, I want you to go handle the people outside that come in through the door. Now, maybe you view yourself as something different, but I see you as being perfect for talking to people because you're a cheerful kind of guy, right? But it's accepting that role, whatever that role is going to be in business, and being okay with accepting it and then learning all aspects of a business. I don't think that an accountant, if I have an accountant, for example, and he's handling the books, well, I want him to come in a couple of times and check out the class. I want him to experience the class. I want him to be a part of it because the more vested in all aspects of the business that you are, the easier it is for you to understand your partners, where they're coming from, right?
Oh, for sure.
Why are we spending $10,000 a month on fucking cleaning supplies? Because we don't want staff. Oh, I don't understand what that is. Okay, all of a sudden they're rolling on the mat and they get staff. Well, hey, man, now you understand why we fucking spend that much money on cleaning supplies.
Yeah, I think you're actually hit nail on the head. I was listening to a podcast with the head of Spotify, which is obviously doing really well for themselves, and he was talking about how they had these like life coaches or mentors that they were hiring, and they said, you know what, will be better if we actually bring them into the company so that they actually understand how the company works. And I've found, like, with this whole COVID thing, and I don't want to throw people under the bus, I'm really pissed off at the local martial arts community because no one's willing to stand up and tell the government, no, you're wrong. But I won't get into too much. But they're giving me advice. They're like, I think they think I'm being negative, and I'm just like, no, I'm being real because they were just talking a lot of fluff. And then they start giving me advice, and I'm like, okay, but that doesn't work for me. And they're like, no, you're being negative. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, but you're not even asking the questions about my business. Even when I talk with these people privately to understand what my business difference is from yours and why I can't do what you're saying, and it's very important to really understand what it is you're dealing with because, I have some wealthy family that have helped me out and I appreciate it. But some of the advice they give me, I'm like, have you done the fitness or martial arts industry? They're like, no, not really. I'm like, so I'm not sure if that advice works for me. Like, you're just being stubborn. I'm like, yeah, but could you maybe explain? And they don't even want to get to know my business in a real sense. So it's like,
Right.
basically on my own half the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I well, we won't touch on COVID too much
Yeah.
because it's a losing
Right.
losing
Yeah.
conversation. However, I think the best takeaway on what you've said is if you're willing to understand what I, as a business owner, am going through, maybe you'll have just a more open mind, open ears, open whatever to help me get ahead. Because
Yeah.
I do believe that you can't get anywhere by yourself. I'm a
Yeah.
huge believer in that. You need help.
Yeah.
But help is relative to those that are willing to actually listen to you
Yeah.
and be willing to listen to you and do what's needed for the big picture of being successful.
Yeah.
That's who gives a shit if I'm good and I know everything. If I don't help you, how is that benefiting you? And if we're working as a team, I mean, just think about the old days when you were part of that unit, right?
Yeah.
You're part of the unit, and one guy's comms, another guy's doing this, another guy's doing this. Well, if I don't communicate with everybody on my team, and we have to go into some place, we're gonna get fucking smoked
Yeah.
because there's been no. I know who's first in, I know who's second in, I know who's watching our six, and all that cool military bullshit. But at the end of the day, a successful venture is very much in the same way. Know your role, work together, and do what it takes to have a successful whatever.
Yeah.
Anyways, fucking rambling, blah, 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 blah.
It makes total sense. I wanted to go back what you said. Someone was telling you stay in your lane about the policing, and I think this argument comes up all the time in martial arts and self-defense. And I'm on the belief that you don't have to have done it as long as you understand the needs and applications and get the training to compensate for that. For example, I've never been a police officer, yet I've had students who go to the police academy, come back and like, John, what they taught me isn't working. Can you fix it? And I'm like, yeah, no problem. Because I've learned from people who have had lots of experience and taught me a better way to do it than what's being taught in the academies, which
of course
is garbage most of the time these days.
Yeah, and they'll say it, and because of which we'll leave. We won't go down that rabbit hole. But you're absolutely right, and I think that again, most of the contractors that go to train units, specialized units, are not within their organization, so to speak.
Yeah.
They get outsiders, civilians that come in and do these schools, these specialty schools. They get civilians to come in and teach it because the civilians are the ones in the thick of understanding how to make them better at whatever that job is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the argument falls on deaf ears. It's just, again, the internet, and you're allowed to say whatever you want and blah, 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 blah. Now, that being said, I know some guys who just shouldn't teach certain things to certain people. Like you shouldn't, because you suck.
Yeah.
Now that's where vetting your instructors, vet them strong. Because if in this day and age right now, you can't hide shit.
Yeah.
If you suck and you're lying about everything you fucking have done, believe me, at some point in time, you're going to be outed.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And that's where the good. I'm very thankful for the fact that I've been vetted, and I'm totally good with the fact that the things that have come back, I can smile, I can hold my head up high because I know where I am in the food chain.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a lot to do with ego as the instructor. Like I'm very honest with my students. I'm like, listen, I'm not an athlete. I've never been an athlete. I struggled in the military. It was hard. But you see the look on some people's faces like, but John, you're an athlete. I'm like, no, you're just really out of shape. Believe me, I can get you to be better than me very quickly because I know what my capacity is, my limits are. If I train this much, I need to sleep. Then I watch some of these young guys just go every day, all the time, constantly. I'm like, I will die if I do that. I am just being honest. But I do it just fine, I think that's an interesting thing to talk about is because like all martial arts or styles, there is a pretty significant problem in the Krav Maga world about crappy instructors that have a certificate somewhere or something. What do you think?
It's frustrating. It's very frustrating. And again, I don't want to get into too many politics about things, but you have to ask yourself one very important question, and this is the truth. Is your instructor providing you what you want? Is your instructor providing you what you want and need?
Yeah.
Right? Now, there are some instructors out there, I may not be happy with what they're teaching.
Yeah.
Okay? But at the end of the day, if they're teaching, if their student is empowered as a result of their teaching, that's got to count for something, right?
Yeah, for sure.
This is where I think I just want people to be more honest about what they're good at and what they're not good at.
Yeah.
Okay? I don't teach people jiu-jitsu or fighting on the ground.
Yeah.
I'm very, very open about what I'm just not. It's just, no, in that way, I'm going to stay in my lane.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I care about what I teach that student. And if I teach something that's going to get them fucking hurt or killed, well, that is not helping them at all.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's it's an interesting point. Did you have something to add there? Because I cut you off, I think.
No. Go ahead. No.
It's
no.
I've taught security personnel before. Vancouver, Canadian security is a joke, but I won't get into that. But I've taught security personnel occasionally. I've taught students, and I'm just like, your best self-defense is do not get in a fight. And they're like, oh, I'm doing really good. I'm like, I want you to understand, I gave you a belt as a milestone. Yeah. You suck at fighting. You're going to get your ass kicked. You got the belt because you met the requirements. Don't get in fights. And then people get it in their head like, I'm this. And I'm like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
You are terrible.
Yes. And I you know what? Honestly, I'll be honest with you. Rank in general is a bit of a point of contention with me.
It's people are for or against.
Yeah. And in theory, I should be the biggest proponent for rank because of my accomplishments.
Yeah.
But I'm not.
Yeah.
I've seen too many rank, and the beautiful part is this subject transcends the entire planet on every scale, because your rank should never you should get respect not because of your rank but because of your actions.
Yeah.
And where I have a problem is people who push their rank because they have not done or are not willing to do enough action wise to earn that respect from their peers and or we'll go with peers, leave it at peers. Your rank doesn't help you at all. In our industry, rank doesn't help you at all when you're getting knocked the fuck out by a guy who's got issues with you.
Yeah.
So your rank, you put it perfectly. Your rank is a milestone. It's you did what was necessary at that point in time, on that day specifically, you did enough to give you whatever the reward was for what you did on that day.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at most instructors who on that day got their instructor whatever, let's see what you're like in a year from now. Yeah. Are you better or are you worse? Did you rest on your laurels? Did you sit there and use your fucking instructor certification as your end all be all? Or did you upgrade and work constantly to sit there and become a better version of yourself?
Yeah. No, for sure.
And, right?
Yeah. It's from a practical application from like belts. There's no belts on the streets. It makes sense. I approach rank as it's a teaching thing. Understanding human behavior is that people need those things. Otherwise, they're not going to
raised that way
enough in order to get to the point where they need to defend themselves meaningfully.
No, I will never argue that, because again, we're going to go back into the business aspect. If the student does not have a goal and they can't find this is my first goal and second goal and third goal, well, then they're not going to keep coming back and you're not going to get any money. And I get all of that. Yeah. I agree 1,000% with it. I had a train of thought and I lost it.
Well, you're talking about belt factories, and I do not agree with those at all.
No, but there is. Okay, so we used to have in Canada way long time ago, unfortunately they got rid of it. On days at school, they would have a physical day where everybody would get these bronze, silver, gold, and award of excellence. There were these little badges that, right? And everybody in that day had to go, and it was like a flexed arm hang, and you had to run, and a whole bunch of things that they got rid of because a lot of kids were not able to do very well at it.
Yeah.
And I was the guy who would always get like a bronze at best.
Yeah.
Right. And that's usually because there was nobody else. So I got the bronze. I never got the award of excellence. But that badge, in our cultures, in everybody's culture, we want to get something to show that we can do it.
Yeah.
Graduating from school, graduating from anything, there's some kind of piece of paper that says I did this and I deserve whatever because I did this. I do a goal, I get the reward of the goal. And I see it, and it's in the world culture. I'm not, to try to fight it would be like fucking ridiculous.
It's the reward system of the brain. It's what it is.
I get it, and I totally get it. But now I care more, I care more about a student, regardless of what level they're at for training. I care more about that student's success in life than I do about a rank.
Yeah. Now
there is some benefits to having rank and all of that, and I get it. That's awesome. But if we're going to talk about sheer just what makes Marcus happy, Marcus is happy when his student survives an onslaught of an attack of violence.
Yeah.
And when I say survived, I mean without 6 months in intensive care and without 6 years of therapy. I want them to be able to survive mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, all the Lees, Bruce Lee, all the Lees, man. I want them to be able to survive that situation on every level. And that has no rank on the fucking planet is going to help that. That's an individual thing because everybody is different.
Yeah.
But that's why I suck at business.
Yeah. Well,
I will always suck at business for that.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, Vancouver is a very difficult place to run a Krav Maga school.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm not, and which is the reason why, 15 years ago, I went to these guys that were downtown. They were worldwide at the time. Our culture from Vancouver, our culture is, violence doesn't, we don't have violence in Vancouver or not enough to justify it. And as somebody who, I have to be careful with what I say because these podcasts are forever. There might have been a time in my life where maybe I was very, very aware of how much violence was going on in in Vancouver. And it has not changed for the less. It's changed greater in the last 30, 40 years.
Yeah, I would say, actually, that's a very interesting point about Vancouver, and I think it relates to people living in their bubbles. For example, for a time, I was working for a friend. Well, I grew up in Metro Vancouver my whole life. What were we doing? We were cleaning hoarder houses.
Fuck.
You know how many there are in Vancouver? A lot more than you think.
Yeah.
And in Vancouver, it's a weird city where if you don't want to see something, you don't have to because it's very easy to create a bubble life here. And you see that mimic when people say it's really hard to make friends, it's really hard to find relationships because people see what they want to see. It's not like New York where it's right in front of your face. You can't. And so I have my mother, wonderful person, but if you talk to her about violence here, she's clueless. And then I tell her, I wasn't a bad kid. I tell her sometimes, I hung around gangsters when I was younger. Not in the gangs, but you don't realize they're gangsters, and then you hang around them, and it's like, if you know where to look in Vancouver, you will find it. But the way I approach it in Vancouver, it's like, oh, you haven't been shot at? Great. You're making smart decisions because in Vancouver, you kind of have to look for it a little bit. It's there. But as the city expands, like all cities, the violence is going to increase inherently. It's just the way it is.
Well, back when I was a youngster, I remember Wally, man. Wally was in Surrey. If you were in Surrey and you were in Wally, you were going to get fucked up, and it was blah, 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 blah. And then the SkyTrain was created, and holy shit, you could go from Surrey over to Burnaby. I mean, I just think it's funny that the bubble aspect has really happened in the last small amount of time, because everybody in East Van knew that Surrey was bad, and they knew that Burnaby had their share of fucking retards there.
Yeah.
Every city had some areas where violence was prevalent.
Yeah.
Now, if you didn't, and it doesn't make the news as much, well, I mean, I'm sure it does, but I just never used to watch the news, and that part hasn't changed in my life.
Good for you.
But, yeah, it's probably why I only have a little bit of the gray hair that I do. But every part of Vancouver, BC, every part of British Columbia has violence in every city there is.
Yeah.
And you can't say that Vancouver is worse than Surrey and Surrey's worse than, fucking New Westminster. It's a shit show across the board, because violence is very prevalent in the Canadian fucking area.
Yeah. Yeah.
It isn't fucking South Park and all the bullshit that they say about us there. I mean, it's a fucking Canada's a violent place, just like the entire fucking planet is violent.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And it's funny with all the all the political stuff going on. I'll say to people, like Antifa. What about the Antifa riots and stuff? And people in Vancouver are like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. It's not a big deal. And I'm like, I have a student who got beat up by Antifa in Vancouver because they're violent motherfuckers everywhere they are. And they're like, there's no such thing in Vancouver. They're not a problem. I'm like, what are you talking about? I know people who have been beat up by them. Okay. Yeah. They just run around they hang around the hipster area.
Yeah, well,
fights with the punks. It's hilarious. I mean, it's hilarious as a conceptual. It's not good, but it's like the punks in the alternative rock scene was fighting them. I only know about it though because of my student and my friends.
Right.
If you're just like my mother, she has no clue any of this is going on. That they're beating the shit out of each other left and right, putting people in hospitals.
Yeah.
But you have to know where it is.
Yeah.
And the media does.
Well, and I think it's okay. So we're now in 2021, right? That's what year we're in, 2021?
Yeah, I think maybe.
Okay. So 2021, and in 1983 and 1984, this discussion I experienced in real life, that groups of people would beat up other groups of people because they were easy targets. My point is that wake the fuck up, planet, that history doesn't change. It's just a circular motion, and what comes around goes around. What happened before will happen again. There's no change in it unless individuals change their dynamic and how they are living, because at the end of the day, what happened in the past will happen in the future.
Yeah.
It doesn't change.
It's funny you bring that up, because it's a point of I have this argument with people all the time. So like I like to listen to a lot of academic stuff and whatnot. And you get the historians and you get all these people like history doesn't repeat itself. When they say that, what they're talking about is it literally doesn't repeat itself. But I'm like, what hasn't changed in the last 5,000 years? Human behavior, okay?
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of, I think on the internet, I'm not really on Twitter, but it's like hashtag like civil war is trending. And I'm like, and I'm just like, I'm always joking. I'm like, if a civil war happens in America, which side do you think's going to win this time? Like, just objectively, let's be real here.
Yep.
And like, no, it's never going to happen. I'm like, if you keep pissing off the other side, they're actually being push right now.
You can't push without having some kind of repercussion. That's again, but you said it right there. Like I think that if anybody listens to this and they're already like, oh my God, human behavior does not change ever. You're always going to have racism. You're always going to have violence against the weak. You're always going to have people who are afraid of something new and different. You're always going to have a mob mentality. Like that is never going to change ever.
Yeah.
Ever. So fucking deal with it and come to terms with where you are when it comes to human behavior. And if you don't like where you are, you better start doing things to change it, because at some point in time, the universe is going to slap you in the face with human behavior.
Yeah. And you know, I get in trouble for this, of course, being in Vancouver, about addressing cultural differences in self-defense. Now, I'm not approaching it from like I stopped trying to approach it from a race thing because it's not going to go good. It's
Yeah.
your culture, because if you meet like an African black person versus a Detroit black person, they're
Yeah.
different, and in London.
Yeah. Not even the
And
same.
so I remember I was in some other school hosted it in Vancouver, and they had a very well-known American self-defense person working with another big Krav Maga organization, and I said, how do you address cultural differences as far as violence? Because you know, in England, you know, it's the two fingers up versus
Yeah.
here,
Yeah.
and
One
if you
finger. Yeah.
don't know the cultural differences, it's gonna get
Hmm.
you in a fight or not. And they just looked at me, and they had been a cop for many, many years. If you want to know, I'll tell you the name off air. But
Okay.
they're just like, everyone bleeds the same blood, and I'm like, what the fuck? I didn't say it, but I'm
Yeah.
thinking, what the fuck are
Yeah.
you talking about? Like, that's the laziest answer I've
Answer.
ever heard.
Yeah.
Now, the
Yeah.
hosts of this place are very left wing, and they just looked at me like I'm super racist. I'm like, okay, but you do understand you can't talk to people of a different culture the way you think. And an example I had in Israel, you know, in English, you say you son of a bitch, no big deal.
Yeah.
You say it in Israel, you're getting punched.
Oh, you're getting punched right in the fucking head. Yep.
So, you know, when I started speaking in Hebrew, my Hebrew sucks shitty now because I haven't spoken it forever. And I say, you know, Ben Zona, just casually like I do in
Yeah.
English. Well, it
Yeah.
runs into problems over there. And
Yeah. Yeah.
translate now. And I watched some Mizrahi guy knock the fuck out of a Ashkenazi guy who ran into the same problem because he didn't understand the cultural difference.
Yeah.
Right. So how
Yeah.
do you approach that aspect in teaching
Well, I think.
without being racist?
Well, no. The truth is so the good thing about Canada, the good thing is we're very multicultural.
Sure.
Now, in my growing up, you know, I had a ton of Native Indians, ton of white guys, and then you know we had some East Indians, some Asians, but mainly it was Native Indians.
Hmm.
Well, when you got a bunch of Native Indians and a bunch of white guys, and you're all in a drunk environment, like not us being drunk, but we live in drunk households. The funny part is that you you have an equal, no matter what we say to each other, we can't really think that we're better than each other because my drunk mother is the same as your drunk mother, and we're, you know, like that's the one cool thing about Vancouver at that time anyways.
Yeah.
But do you want to hear something culturally that is different from us than anywhere else?
Sure.
So you're familiar with the term goof?
Yeah. Yeah.
You understand that the significance of how bad that word is?
Not in the context that you're
Okay.
saying, perhaps.
Okay, well, when I was growing up, especially in our Canadian penal system,
Yeah.
you call somebody a goof and you're getting knocked the fuck out. Like there's no
See,
there's
this is
no
news
if
to me
answers.
because to me a goof would be like just you're goofing off or you're screwing around.
Yeah, no. Well, listen, as a young Canadian male, do not go up to somebody of an older age that might look like they've been to prison and call them a goof because you'll get knocked out.
Yeah.
Because a goof is like the lowest. That's even worse than pedophiles. Like you're the scum of the earth. Now, as somebody who grew up in East Vancouver, I know that there's certain words that I'm not going to use. When I'm in a country, and the two fingers, or you know, in Israel, this is everything's shut up, right?
Yeah.
Everything's you
Piss
can't
them
see it
off
on
when they
screen,
do
but
it.
yeah, okay, you can't. But now in other cultures, that's a profanity.
Yeah.
It's not good to say or do.
Yeah.
So if you're dealing with cultural issues and you've got somebody who, again, the good part about cultural issues is if you're listening and you're learning about these cultural issues, one, it makes you a better instructor.
Yeah.
Okay, because you become a little more global in your ways of thinking instead of your little fucking bubble that you live in. But there's certain words that nobody can use, and you know, you just can't. Like it doesn't matter what culture you are. There's certain words that you're not allowed to use, but they're trigger words that will piss off everybody else. I think where I have a problem with cultural violence because of cultural is it's a great excuse.
Yeah.
Right? And
As in,
most
like,
violent
it's okay in my
actions
culture,
happen
therefore, yeah.
right. So if I'm with a guy and I say something that offends him, even if it's by accident, if the guy really wants to fight, he's just going to use that as the excuse to fight anyways.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Like, and that's, again, human behavior is the same across all planes of this planet. If I really want to fight with you, I'll find a reason to have that fight with you. Doesn't matter how often you apologize for your mistake. I'm still going to get in a fight with you because I want to have that fight.
Yeah.
So when you're dealing with different cultures in any way, shape, or form, and with Canadians, we're always so fucking apologetic. Sorry. It makes me sick.
Yeah. No sorry, Krav Maga. Stop saying.
That's right. Yeah. Sorry is between shit and syphilis in the dictionary.
Yeah.
You know, this, and what I've been going through in the last probably 10 years is a lot more de-escalation, verbal judo, things like that. And that's where, if we teach anything to our students, it has to be, in my opinion, learning how to verbally de-escalate.
Yeah.
I think that's the number one thing that's lacking in all self-defense systems is verbal de-escalation.
Yeah.
There was a guy, and I feel bad because I fuck up his name. It was a former JKD guy with like the Bruce Lee era, Larry something. I think it starts with an H, Larry Hatham, or I'm sorry to whoever's listening. And you're like, I can't believe you don't know this legend's name. Forgive me. But there was a great video of a seminar he did, and he was talking about this guy who wanted to pick a fight with him. And he started saying stuff like, yep, you're absolutely right. Okay, yeah. And by the way, where'd you get that shirt? I love that shirt, man. Right? Like things that, now I've done the verb de-escalation for, when you're working in security in nightclubs, de-escalation is your number one tool.
Yeah.
Because you're dealing with drunks.
Yeah.
Okay? So you need to fucking de-escalate because otherwise you'd be swinging hands every night. But de-escalation applies to all aspects of your life. Yeah. When you're in a professional environment and you've got a boss who wants to fucking fire you, being able to de-escalate that, you can save yourself. You'll probably get fired later on anyways, because chances are you shouldn't be at that job. But your ability to de-escalate, circumvent, and reevaluate the verbal fight before it becomes a physical fight.
Yeah,
that's massive. It is the number one most underrated tool that we have. Right. Mostly because it's not sexy.
Yeah, I agree with you. Now, there's a couple points to that. Reality is that most students are not capable enough after a year of training to deal with serious violence. So I'm always emphasizing, listen, don't get in a fight, talk your way out of it, create space, really do it. And then I'll say, listen, that's a skill, de-escalation. You are not learning from this guy. Because my inherent natural strategy is to try to out crazy. And I'm like, you can't pull that off, so don't do that. You need to... Right. Because in my life, it's actually worked. I've gotten out of a lot of fights because I've acted in a very strange or hyper-aggressive or just not expected way, and people don't know what to do with it, so they back down. But that's like a natural skill. So I'm always like, listen, you need to learn to talk your way out of it. If you don't know how to do it, like I've had students that it's like, they're always telling me they're getting in fights. I'm like, okay, I just take a step back. Why are you keep getting in fights? It's something you're doing, for sure.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And like I had an incident where this guy was telling me one story about what happened, and then a really good friend of mine at the time told me the real story, and I'm like, you're fucking up, man. He's like, no, this is what happened. I'm like, no, it's not. I know exactly what you did. You picked the fight when it didn't matter. It was they were working on some set, movie set. Some crackhead stole some stuff down, and then they chased him down or something, and then the pimp or whatever, I don't know. And I'm like, it's not your property. Who cares? They have insurance. Why are you? But it's a person who was looking for fights all day. I'm like, you have too many stories, like that don't need to be there. So you need to learn to stop and take a mental break and think about the violence and not do it. But I think you're right, is that de-escalation is extremely important. It's difficult to teach. I can't teach it because, one, I'm lacking that aspect in my life, but also everyone's a little bit different, and it's such a comprehensive thing to teach. It's a specialized thing on its own. Like, for example, like FBI, what are they called? Negotiator people. I think the really, really good ones, for one reason or another, they just really have it. Some people...
Well, I agree. I agree, except that I would say this, that de-escalation is finding your own verbiage to make a hostile situation calm, which usually comes down to your ability to relate to the aggressor. Now, it's very difficult for most people to relate to a fellow human being because we can't possibly relate to another human being because I'm right and you're wrong. And God damn it, this is how it is. And that's why we're fighting. Now, where I differ in opinions is if you go up to any of your students, again, we always love extremes.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm having a fight with you and I have to de-escalate it. Oh, I don't think I can do it because of whatever. Okay, now your girlfriend is beside the bad guy and they have a knife to her throat and they're going to cut her open. And the only way you cannot let her get slit open is to de-escalate this situation.
Yeah.
If it's important, you'll find a way to sit there and do it. If it doesn't come naturally. Now, de-escalation doesn't come naturally. I have 30 years of experience on what not to do, which is the only reason that I'm able to de-escalate from, I don't get in fights at all. But in Walmart or in fucking some shit place where somebody wants to have a fight, my ability to de-escalate is only because I know that what not to do, and I just do I do the opposite of what I should be doing because that'll get me in a fight, and I just talk my way out of it. It's not difficult when you find, again, I don't know when you did your instructor course, whether there was role playing or not, which I would imagine there would have been, because when you're doing role playing in teacher scenarios, they always throw a curveball at you. Okay, here you got this fucking ADD guy, and hey, you know what? Here's a guy that fucking has Tourette's, and how do you deal with these people? Well, you got to find some way to be able to interject an understanding between you and the aggressor.
Yeah.
Now, sheer violence where the guy comes out of nowhere and punches you out of nowhere and there's no fucking precursor and there's no warning or anything, like those happen so infrequently.
Yeah.
There's always something that you can do to de-escalate it till the actual first shot comes in.
Yeah.
At which point in time, if you get hit and there's all these fucking precursors, you deserve to get hit because you're not paying attention to all the warning signs.
Yeah.
But de-escalation, I'm telling you from my own personal opinion, I think it's while it's the hardest thing to teach, is only because, in my opinion, you need to find a way to get your students to find their way of communication.
Yeah.
Communication is probably the number one thing that we have as human behavior that we fail miserably at.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Right?
Yep. For sure.
So,
they don't really I mean, if I have kids, I'm totally homeschooling them because I think our public school systems have completely failed to teach basic life skills, and learning how to interact with people is one of the skills that is gone, especially now.
Right.
Completely.
And this epidemic of shit that we've been going through is only adding to that already disconnect from intercommunications and personal people skills.
Yeah. Well, people don't even.
It's only getting worse.
They don't want to have conversations anymore. And I was talking. Occasionally, I'll make the mistake of engaging with people online. I usually don't, but sometimes you'll meet someone who actually knows how to have a discussion and a debate, and they are like, I've had this a few times where they're like, "Oh, I really enjoy talking to you, but we're on the internet, and I just don't want to because the way it normally goes, which is yelling and screaming."
Right.
Point counterpoint debates are gone. There's no.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't trust your sources. It's like, okay, well, if you'd like me to play that game, I can say your source, how many times they've lied in the last year, stuff like that. People don't want to accept the other side's facts, like for sure facts. Like both sides have valid facts, and you gotta meet in the middle and say, how can we resolve this meaningfully? But it just seems people dig their heels in because they don't know how to communicate or debate. No. Right. Someone very close to me, I'm not going to say specifically, that they were never taught how to have a debate that wasn't an argument. And I've been working with them to try and let's have debates where we're not yelling at each other. It's a really hard skill for people to learn about it. And to be fair, I'm quite the antagonistic person, but it's a skill in its own that people aren't learning anymore.
Well, and I think that again, there's three sides to every story: yours, mine, and the truth.
Yeah.
So the fact that you and I are talking, and I think it's funny when people do argue online often, I think it makes me laugh a little bit, because if you and I are typing words, at any time there's a disconnect from, like right now I can be like, fuck you, you're a fucking asshole. And there's no way I can take those words back.
Yeah.
There's no reason to sit there and while I'm typing, not take a second, breathe before I continue with that, whatever that train of thought is. Where I have a problem is, and I was never taught how to have debates.
Yeah.
Okay. I come from a fucking drunk household where my mother spanked me with a frying pan across the head. Okay. It's an abusive, shitty, like my upbringing definitely did not lead me to be able to have debates, which cripples me now when people want to just have articulate conversations, because when I get frustrated or flustered because they're chess players and I'm checkers, I immediately shut down and resort to safety nets of verbal escalation, profanity, and then threats of violence.
Yeah.
Because I'm ill prepared for an actual debate on subjects.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm at 50 plus uncomfortable and unable to do it, and I didn't have those skills, this younger generation is really unprepared, because you're not even giving them, I know for sure that there's 3 sides to this conversation. Okay. I know that for a fact. I'm going to tell mine. You're going to tell yours. And the third part is where you and I are supposed to come together and find a common ground so that we can hear each other.
Yeah.
Now, I know that you know that I know that most conversations, the person isn't listening. They're waiting for their opportunity to talk.
Yeah.
So already we're in a fucked situation because nobody actually listens. They just were like, yeah, because I want to pounce.
Yeah.
Well, that's not a conversation, man. That's a one-sided talk.
Yeah.
With 2 people.
Yeah. I'm guilty of that for sure. But I think you brought up a sort of a good point. Like if someone's playing chess and you're playing checkers, and they're talking to you, and it's an ego thing in many ways. Like there's nothing wrong with you not knowing how to play chess. Nothing wrong with it. Because if the person talking to you is patient enough and you're patient enough, they can explain. And I've found, for me, I pay attention to a lot of things. And when I have conversations with people, they're just missing huge swaths of information to even have the conversation. And then when I try to say, hey, are you aware of this? Do you know about that? Do you know about this? And they shut off because it's above their head.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you can say, listen, I don't want to have this conversation right now. Totally cool. But what people aren't doing is acknowledging the gaps in their knowledge. Now, in a Krav Maga perspective, that's going to get you killed.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree. Well, I think, and I'll be honest with you, when it comes to conversations or communication, my job has really helped me with doing that, because 90% of my job, there's a translator involved.
Yeah.
So I have to say something, wait for them to translate, look at the responses. So there's always a delay. And then I find out usually that the translator didn't say it properly, because I have somebody in the course saying, well, actually they fucked that right up. So the good part is that it starts a dialogue, and it forces me to be very clear with what I'm trying to say, because I know I've got to go through a third party to get my point across. And culturally, I have to be very aware of what I'm saying, because the people that I'm talking to probably aren't going to understand. Now, that being said, I swear more in my teaching with a translator than I do any other time, because like everybody else, I get frustrated at the delay of having the conversation. Hi, my name is Marcus. Pause. Blah, 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 Marcus.
Yeah.
Palm, heel, strike. You know what I mean? Like, the translator has made me aware of the fact that I need to be very clear with what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I need to have a variety of different ways to say the exact same thing.
Yeah. Now I wonder, I just thought of this, like, because I find hardcore Israeli instructors don't like to intellectualize their self-defense like Tony Blauer does. And I'm wondering if that's just because they wanted to go quickly and they don't want to. You know?
Okay, so I'm gonna tell a joke that you may have already heard. So why do Israelis not have sex in public or make love in public?
No idea. I actually have not.
They don't want anybody telling them what they're doing wrong.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I say that in Israel when I'm with people from Israel and they kind of laugh, but it's a little too close to home. So sometimes it depends if they think it's funny or not.
Yeah.
But the truth is that with Israel, Israelis in general, real Israelis, you've got to sit there and you've got get to the point,
Yeah.
or we're gonna beat around the bush. I'm gonna say 500 different things to get to it because I need to bombard you with a whole bunch of words to shut you up.
Yeah.
Either way, like for me, Israel is a second home. I love Israel, and if I didn't marry my ex-wife, I'd probably still be living there.
Yeah.
You know, it's a country that I'm comfortable in, but culturally,
Yeah.
it can be a challenge.
Oh yeah, that's why I didn't stay. I'm too
Yeah.
Canadian. I like lineups. What's a lineup?
Yeah. No.
You know, I would be in the military and I'd point out, they're like, "Oh, we're so polite and we're nice to each other." And what the fuck are you talking about? I saw a bunch of
Yeah.
soldiers push an old lady off the fucking bus because they needed to get on to go to the thing. They're like, "Nope, no one would ever do that." I'm like, "You know how many times I've seen that? Okay,
Yeah.
stop
Yeah.
telling me that you're all super. You're the rudest people in the world."
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
They definitely are a different breed of humans. But again, that being said, you know, you go to China. Okay, I taught in China several times, and I think I go back if it opens up this year or next year. My godson's in China, so I use any time possible to go and see him, work-wise possible. There's a culture where foreigners will never understand unless you go there and stay there and spend time and see the people in their native areas. You can't understand that culture.
Yeah.
That the one thing about my job that I do and love more than anything is having seen most of this world. There's certain continents I haven't been to yet, but seeing most of this world, I have an appreciation for how I was raised, the culture that I grew up in, regardless of, you know, alcoholism and drunks and violence. But I can't appreciate America, or I can't appreciate Canada as much. I wouldn't have appreciated as much if I didn't travel the world and see different cultures and see what real poverty is like, or see real stubborn people, or real whatever, fill in the blanks. That's what I wish the world would do more of, is travel, so you can get an understanding of, when you go to India, why Indians are the way that they are. Understand the culture of where they're from and why they are the way they are. Be on a reservation, go on a reservation, live on a res for fucking a month. And maybe then you'll understand why First Nations people have the ways of actions that they do. China, fill in the blanks, Israel, whatever. Go to the source of that country and you'll understand the culture, and maybe you'll understand the people a little better.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment, because when I travel, I do not like to do tours or touristy stuff unless it's a local who's like going to take you to local stuff. Like, I think too many people who travel, especially in Canada, I travel, but they're not traveling. They're just going there and doing the experience of being there, but they're not understanding the culture. They're not going into the dirty places. They're not hanging out with locals beyond the groups, and they don't really learn. Like, that's the best way. Go stay in a local's house and get them to show you around, right? Did
you do the lone? You did the Lone Warrior program, right?
Yeah. It's complicated, but my journey in Israel was fraught with problems the entire time.
Right. Well, so we'll move on away from that. But so if I go to different countries, just because you go to a McDonald's in China or a McDonald's in fucking Guatemala or Venezuela, you go to a McDonald's and I think that doesn't mean that you're cultured and that you understand the people. Going to your safe little areas, having local food, being around local people, understanding, like you said, non-touristy things. And that's not, listen, if you go to all inclusive in fucking Cancun but for you that's traveling, so be it. Just be mindful of when you shit on everybody else. understand that your glass house has so many fucking holes in it, so you be careful when you start throwing them stones.
Yeah. Well, Mexico's an interest. I always tell people, I was like, yeah, where you been in Mexico? Oh, you know, the resort towns. I'm like, yeah, how is that? Did you feel safe? It's like, yeah. It's like, you want to go to Mexico City? They're like, why would I do that? And
Yeah,
I'm like, I want you to know why the resort towns are safe. It's because the cartels make money off of them and they
yeah,
make them safe. And
yeah,
if you think you love Mexico, go to real. I've never been, but I'm not
yeah,
delusional to
yeah,
understand.
yeah,
If you go to Mexico, I have Mexicans telling me jokes. Actually, in Israel, Mexicans are scared of the dark because
yeah,
you don't go out at night by yourself.
yeah,
You will
yeah,
get robbed or stabbed. You know, and then
yeah.
you say
Very
something
true.
like you say, especially in Vancouver, you say something like that here. People are like, you're so racist. I'm like, you're delusional.
Yeah,
You
no,
don't know
it's
what you're
true.
talking about.
Very, very fucking true.
Yeah.
Ironic that you bring up Mexico because I've been asked where are the countries that I've felt most uh, unsafe.
Yeah.
Colombia and Mexico, and I have good people in Mexico City. Like I have solid cats, man. They're good people, and I am constantly in a state of high fucking
Yeah.
um, risk awareness in Mexico City. It is a great city with great, not a great city. It's got great people.
Yeah.
But Mexico City's no fucking joke. And like you just said, and like most of the fucking planet that opens their eyes, there's certain places in our planet where, like Brazil. Brazil, people sit there and say, Marcus, when are you going to come to Brazil? I'm like, fuck, I'll come, but I'm not really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I love Brazilian women. I love Brazilian food. Going to Rio de Janeiro is not on my fucking list of places I want to go to.
Let's go take a stroll in the favelas. Let's have fun.
Yeah, fuck, no problem. Yeah, and I'm gonna wear really, really expensive clothes while I'm at it, and no,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
no thanks, man. But again, if you don't know and you're getting all your information from a source of information, meaning the news or internet or whatever, and you have no life experience, then of course you're gonna talk out your ass about things you don't know,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, that's just human nature.
You know, on that note, I was teaching a family, and I was talking about like what to do if a school shooter comes in, and this family was homeschooling because they're just like, I can't deal with the public school system anymore.
Yeah,
And I'm like, what are they teaching you to do still? Of course, they're still teaching them hide under the desk and wait. I'm
yeah,
like, okay, you do realize I had a conversation when I was at university. I'm saying, you guys, like, they were annoyed at something I was teaching. I'm like, you guys don't know what you're talking about. And I started talking about what happens if a school shooter happens.
yeah,
And
yeah,
they're like, I think we're gonna listen to the experts. I'm like, I'm sorry, what?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Because I
yeah,
smash the window, get the fuck out. The
yeah.
policies of stay and hide under the desk are administrative policies, easy for attendants and easy for the
Yes.
police, and aren't keeping anyone safer. Get the fuck out or
No.
charge that person. That's it. And you
Yeah.
tell this to people, and they're like, who's writing these fucking policies? I don't know who's
Yeah.
doing it. They have experts apparently, but
Right.
they're
Yep.
not up to date with what's acceptable, solutions for these problems. And
Right.
what's going on everywhere right now is they're listening to experts who are live in la la land because they don't
Yeah.
actually go, figure out what the real world is like.
Well, and you said it right there that the whoever's making the policy, it's easy to administer whatever it is that they're asking you to do. And again, sheep mentality of we're not going to sit there and have anybody learn to take care of themselves. We're going to wait for police, fire,
Yeah,
EMT, whatever. We're going to wait for somebody to help us because that's what's going to work. And that history has shown that that doesn't work and that you have to be proactive in your ability to defend yourself and or create opportunities to get the fuck out of whatever that scenario is. And
yeah,
it doesn't have to be active shooter or active killer. Sorry, I go with Grossman's saying on that because I'm a shooter. I'm around shooters, and there's a negative connotation with that. So active killers that come into these places, you take that same mentality of I need to empower myself, I need to educate myself, I need to make sure I'm safe in all my surroundings. Now take that and apply that to every aspect of our life, and you'd have a different world altogether because you'd have a bunch of motivated people who are active in their behavior or are proactive in what they're doing. It'd be a different world. Now, is that reality? Fuck no.
yeah,
It'll never happen because too many people are waiting for the fucking golden egg of rescuing And maybe you, the listeners, are one of those people, and you're like, fuck you. The government's going to help me and the police are going to help me. Hey, man, if that's your world, go to it. I live in a different world.
Yeah.
And I believe that you have to empower yourself.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm with that. Like my experience with the police in Vancouver when I was younger, not anymore, obviously, has been they're no help in most cases unless there's violence going on right now, in which case it's often too late anyway. You know, when I was a teen, I had some issues, and I'd be like, hey, these people are harassing me. They're coming to my home, and their question is, do they have any weapons? It's like, I can't tell right now. Well, we won't rush if there's no weapon. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? I can flip in 2 seconds. They're outside my house.
Yeah.
You know? And the only time they really took anything serious was one time when we got maced. And then they're like, oh, the weapon wasn't, because now we can charge them. And it's like, no. Where's the community policing, you motherfuckers? And I know it's not the actual cop's fault. It's the politicians and stuff.
Yeah. But it's, again, human behavior. Back fucking 5,000 years ago, we may not have had police, but we had protectors that did things. Everything would be after the fact.
Yeah.
Unless they were right there. And the old adage of when help is needed, the help is minutes away, right?
Yeah.
Or hours away, or however long. You don't have time to fucking do anything but take care of yourself, because nobody is coming to save you. Yeah. As negative as that sounds, it's a fact. No one is coming to save you. Yeah. Wake the fuck up.
Well, it's personal responsibility. And, you know, I have a love-hate relationship with Jocko Willink's teachings, because he's very much about take personal responsibility. My contention with that is, if you're the only, you read his books, you know, he even admitted extreme ownership was a terrible idea for a name. But if you read his books and you are taking personal responsibility, but nobody else is, you're going to go fucking crazy. And while I absolutely think people need to be personal responsible, I've been in situations where people are lecturing me about something that I did that bothered them. They're like, you need to take responsibility. I'm like, you know what? You're right. I did it. I'm sorry. But I just want you to acknowledge that it takes two to tango, and you did something here. And they're just like, you're not taking personal responsibility. I'm like, I just did. But listen, man, we just got in a fight. It takes two.
Yep.
What did you do that pissed me off? Did you think you did anything wrong? And they're like, no. You're a fucking asshole. I'm like, okay, personal responsibility means that about everyone. You can you did this that bothered me, and I'm like, okay, that's fair. And of course they have to convince me I did something wrong, which is a whole different ballgame. But then okay, and then I'm like, yeah, but you did something wrong too. No, I didn't. You're not taking personal responsibility. I'm like, you really don't understand how this works, do you?
The whole word right there, personal responsibility, applies to every person on the planet. Everybody's personally responsible for what they say and do. No, I agree. And you know, Jocko's great, and you know, he's a team guy, and he's very famous, and his in your face mentality is great for a certain demographic. You know, I'm always going to just fall on the adage that whatever you say to someone, make sure that you can back up what you're saying.
Yeah.
And if I'm saying something to make myself feel better at your expense, I better be prepared to have repercussions for that. Everything we have is, what is it, Newton or whoever, every action has an equal or greater reaction. So no matter what I do, if I'm talking to you and I say something that upsets you and you punch me in the mouth, we are both to blame for that situation, because you're right, you punched me in the mouth. Now, unless you walked out of nowhere, I'm walking down the street, you walk up in front of me and punch me on the face, literally with no warning whatsoever, okay? Then, okay, it's your fault. But I'm going to have a little asterisk there, because it's my responsibility to be able to be aware of my surroundings and see that a guy came up out of nowhere, all these precursors. It's my responsibility to take care of myself and not fucking be like, wow, he just came out of nowhere. Okay, we saw the CCTV camera. He walked up, his fists were clenched. He had a mean scowl on his face. Everybody's crossing the street as he's walking up towards you. It's pretty obvious that he's in a bad mood. Could you have moved? Could you have walked across the street? Why should I have to? So you don't get punched in the face. Well, everybody's responsible.
A good example is whenever I hear someone running up behind me quickly, I'm like, shit.
Yep.
And they're
Yep.
like, oh, that's paranoid. I'm like, you remember a couple of years ago there was that game where people would just run up behind
Yep.
you and punch them in the
Yep.
back of the head for no reason at all? And it's like,
Yep.
no, it's because I don't. It's odd when you hear quick footsteps
Yep.
behind you in at least where I am. If it's a place where it's normal, it's a different story. But it's like, so I'm
Yep.
gonna react to that. And then I do
Yep.
always the trick if I'm walking down retail, I look in the windows and get
In
some,
the yeah, of course,
you know.
reflections, right? Nope. And again, it paranoia. This is the one thing that most people who are dependent on others for their safety will constantly say that you're paranoid or that you're this or that. And my response, honestly, is this: if I am paranoid, let's just say, let's use that word, I'm paranoid. Who the fuck cares?
Yeah,
Why do you feel it's important for you to tell me that I'm paranoid?
yeah,
You're not in my shoes. You're not in my life. You live your life and you live in your little bubble. Keep your comments to yourself
yeah,
unless they're beneficial.
yeah,
You telling me what you think of me isn't beneficial to anybody but yourself, you selfish fuck. So keep your mouth shut
yeah.
and let's move on.
And you know, it makes me think. I learned a new term in this last year called the normalcy bias, whereas most people assume everything's gonna. Oh, yesterday was this way, and today's this way, and tomorrow's that way, and they make long-term decisions based on the fact their brain assumes everything is gonna follow this normalized pattern. And then people
Right.
like me and you are like, but sometimes things happen that are gonna
Yes.
completely wreck that.
Yeah.
And even if you're just like, let's sort of pivot to the business thing. A lot of people will say, if you want to be successful, you have to learn to pivot. You want to do
Yep.
this, didn't work, you got to go that way.
Pivot.
And
Yep.
so the same is for self defense. It's sure you live in a nice, safe place, but you need to be aware that at any point,
Yep.
for example, when I grew up in Richmond when I was young, there were very few Asians, and now it's almost
It
all.
is.
And by that,
It's all Asian.
yeah,
Yeah.
Chinese.
Yeah.
And nothing against my girlfriend's Chinese. I'm just putting that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so it doesn't bother me, but there is a distinct cultural difference, and now a lot of people don't know how to behave anymore because they never sort of integrated, and nobody saw it coming, and everyone's just like doesn't know what to do with it anymore. You
Okay,
know?
but when you have an area where the street signs are in on the bottom are in Chinese,
Yeah,
okay, then you can say that hey, there's a strong demographic of that culture there. You know, in East Van, there's a huge portion where there's, I believe, at least maybe not anymore, but there was East Indian on the bottom, or East
yeah,
Indian
maybe.
was written on everywhere. At the end of the day, you've got these things that are happening. I don't know what the bias that you just said, bias,
Normalcy
normalcy
bias.
bias.
Yeah,
I don't know what the fuck that even means, and I'm not going to investigate a lot of time to try to understand it because I definitely don't agree with it.
mm,
My only normal should be getting up and appreciating the fact that I was breathing today.
mhm,
That's the one thing. And that, like, okay, I'm alive today. That's the one thing that I would hope that I become kind of. I want to be always happy that that's my normal,
yeah,
because I have gone days without having to be able to breathe, and it's not a good thing.
yeah, yeah,
Okay. But aside from that, isn't life supposed to be like pivoting, like that whole pivot?
yeah,
Life is supposed to be a fucking roller coaster of ups and downs and shit storms.
yeah,
Like that's called life.
yeah,
The fact that you can't adapt to change, adapt to differences that are happening is where our culture as a species is failing miserably,
yeah,
because of the fact that we're in our little bubbles. No. I'm watching, this is my TV and this is my world and everything in here is this. I can't possibly open my eyes and pivot to the left, to the right, to the center, to the northeast by southwest. I can't do that.
yeah.
Okay. So this is where we're going to agree to disagree, and I'm going to move on with my life, and you have a good
Yeah.
day. Take
Yeah,
care.
you know,
Right?
it's funny. Like, I did this thing a while back, called Camp My Way. It's a friend of mine, Terrence Kosker. He was the first responder who responded to the guy who went splat on the skeleton track in the 2010 Olympics, and
Okay. Yeah.
he basically
Yeah.
got PTSD and realized nobody gives a shit about first responders, and because of him, they actually changed the law. But he went back to nature, and he's got a cabin in like some small town in the middle of BC, and he realized that getting away from all this stimulus and just going
Yeah.
and relaxing can calm things down. And I realized, oh, like this is great. And so now I have a truck well, the back of my truck has, at any point I can jump in that truck and sleep in
Right.
my back, and actually I got enough food for 2 weeks. And people are like, you're paranoid. I'm like, hey, you know how we're always talking about that big earthquake that's going to hit Vancouver? Yeah, I
Yep.
can just hop in my truck and fuck off for 2 weeks while you're all stuck here freaking out, you know?
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
and it's like people will call that paranoia. It's like, no, I'm just casually prepared. I'm not like prepping. I just have it ready. I can just hop in and go if I need to, you know? You know, if
Right. But why is it a bad thing that you are prepped?
yeah,
Like, there are, again, there's extremes with everything. I don't believe in extremes because there's got to be a little bit of fucking gray matter there.
yeah,
An extreme prepper, yeah, man, that's a little. And I'm around them. I'm in America, okay? I got extreme preppers all around me. They're good people that are very, very, very prepared for if, when, depending on how you talk to them,
yeah,
something's going to happen. If my man here is prepping a little bit, it's not paranoia. It's his world, his life. Who the fuck am I to sit there and call you anything?
yeah,
The fact that you're not prepared, what does that make you? A fucking sheep? Like that, even that term is not very fucking kind to them.
yeah,
You be you, I'll be me. We'll get together and find a common ground. Again, I'm going to sound like a broken fucking record, but I'd rather talk about what we can find in common versus what we can find that are separating us.
yeah,
Again, segregation, I fucking hate it.
yeah.
Preppers are this and non-preppers are this. Fuck off with your fucking titles and swimming in your little swimming pool and nobody can fucking crossbreed, cross anything. Fuck you. Fuck all of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And like, for example, you have an Asian young lady that you're dating. Well, fuck, that's not good. The Asian people should breed with Asian people. White people or Jewish people should only breed with Jewish people. Hey, come on, fuck off, man. Grow up. Everybody just grow up and wake up to the fact that this world needs less separation and more cohesiveness. Holy Chris. But now I was born in the wrong fucking era, obviously. I should have been
Yeah, we
a
also,
violent hippie.
yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah.
I think I would have done well like a long time ago. Mind you, I would have probably been dead because I would have had the glasses. I wouldn't have been that athletic. So it's like, you get what you're given. So you kind
Yeah,
of,
true. Very true.
but yeah, it's integrating all that into teaching self-defense is it's interesting, because as a Krav Maga instructor, like I'm sure you get this, is people walk in and like, okay, we're gonna kick the shit out of each other, and then you start doing something slightly different. You're like, oh, I'm trying to make you be able to defend yourself for your whole life, not just physical. Sometimes people get very angry when you do that. Like
but again, when you have expectations,
yeah,
right? It's no different than if you're dating. You go and you date a woman or a boy or whatever, and you're like, hey man, let's go for something to eat. And your expectation is that you're gonna fuck.
yeah,
And then when you find out you're not gonna fuck, you get pissed off because you're like, well, I was really thinking we were gonna fuck. Well, hey man, hold on. Why don't you just take what's being given to you and deal with what you're given and evolve from there? No. We have our expectations. I want this, I want that. This is it. I deserve this. And oh my God. You deserve a punch in the face with that bullshit. Fuck you.
Naval Ramakant, I think, said happiness is where your expectations meet reality or something like that. And it's like, I think people have just loopy expectations of reality.
Yeah.
They cycle it through.
And that sense of entitlement, like I deserve this and I deserve that, and you don't deserve shit.
Yeah.
The only thing you deserve, I don't even. Everything that we have is a fucking gift. And I'm big on appreciating it. You know those sand things. You flip it under and the sand.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm at the fucking part where all the sand is at the bottom and I have very little sand at the top. So my perspective and how I view things is a little different than most.
Yeah.
Every single day that you wake up, it's a gift. And your only job on that day today is to make the most of that gift. Now, when you have expectations, or you have not even expectations, but you have a sense of entitlement, well, let me tell you something. You're one day going to get cancer.
Yeah.
And one day you're going to watch people die on you. And the longer you live, the more people die on you. And then you start to sit there and see, hey, you know what? I was a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with youth, right? It's wasted on the young. I have a problem with young people, just like when I was young, people had a problem with me.
Yeah.
And that's just human, again, human behavior, brother, right? We have not changed or evolved. I wish we could say we have. We haven't.
Yeah. Still
Just because
clubbing
we can
over
go to the moon.
metaphorical clubbing each other over the head, but now it's with keyboards.
Yeah, 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 yeah. If we went back to the old ways, though, there'd be a lot less fucking keyboards. I'll tell you that right now.
More people would be dead. You know, I think talking about the death, and as you get older, more and more people die. I think that is actually one of the biggest fears driving is fear of the unknown and death. You can see it going on right now. Again, without getting into it too much, is people are so terrified about something that is like you can't stop. You can't stop it 100%. It's not going to happen, at least in this reality that we live in right now. Maybe in 10,000 years we figure it out, but right now, no.
Yeah.
And it's just like that fear and the ego, like I'm mortal and I'm going to die, and it just drives people to be crazy.
But why though? And my question is why? Why are you afraid of death?
Yeah.
You're so afraid of death that you're not going to live.
Yeah.
And you know, I've had a lot of death in my 50 years. I've had a lot of death. And the more you have death around you, the more you really do appreciate life. And that's where I get frustrated with this condition that we're in right now. And just in general, the world is so afraid of death and afraid to try things because death, everything's death. Well, what the fuck do you think is going to happen?
Yeah.
Do you think that you live forever? Like you get off of this fucking planet and you're alive? Like, and I understand why people are afraid of death. Like you said, they're afraid of the unknown. I get all of that, but it's going to fall on deaf ears because at the end of the day, you've wasted so much time being afraid of something that you haven't even lived. And that's where regret comes in. And regret is the cancer of our life. That is the biggest cancer we have is regret.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fuck that.
Which, you know, that's, you hear that a lot in variety of teachings from a variety of areas. I'm still working on that aspect, but my question to you, because you've had such a difficult life, did you always have this perspective, or is it been built up, or?
It's built up over years of just life experience, and that's the reason why I'm so passionate and adamant about this type of words, is simply because of the fact that I have lived with regret. I have regrets in my lifetime. I have ones that will never change. They'll never go away. They're always going to be there. So my only advice to myself was, let's try not to have as many, like you have. Let's say I have 3 regrets. Let's try not to make it 4.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm going to die, when I die on my deathbed, I know the ones I'm going to regret. I'm going to try my best not to have any new ones.
Yeah. I remember when I was younger, I said, I want to live my life in such a way that if someone ever wrote a book about me, they could actually write an interesting book.
Right. Yeah. And again, I think that everybody should have to write their eulogy.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in that. When you write your eulogy and you write your, write what you want to on your tombstone, when you accept the fact that you're going to die and this is what you want people to say about you, and if you haven't got interesting shit to say, it's not too late to go become interesting. It's never too late. As long as you, and there's a guy, Jason Redman, okay? He's a SEAL, got blown to fucking shit. I mean, he's just he was dead. He's still getting operations to this day. And I talk to him on a regular basis, and his big thing is, and he reminds me regularly because I have my bad days as well. And he'll constantly remind me, Marcus, it's never too late. It's never too late. Now, if you're 80 and you're having these realizations and you get to live to 85, at least you had 5 years of that realization.
Yeah.
Fucking, it's never too late to make your life be the interesting way that you want to be remembered by. And that's some fucking Tony Robbins fucking shit that people are like, fuck you. And that's fine. You don't have to, I'm not spoon feeding you shit. You're hearing whatever you want to hear. I'm just telling you Marcus's experiences. It's never too fucking late. And I have already fucked up enough, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life working so that I don't fuck up any more of it. You're a young man. Young people are listening to this. You don't want to hear it? And I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to them. Yeah. Then don't listen to this fucking guy. Whatever. Turn it off. It's okay. It's
I
all
think
right.
it's really interesting what you just said there. Oh, I'm not talking to you. I talk, for whatever reason, very generally, and people get very offended because they automatically assume you're talking about them,
Oh,
but it's to do with
that's
their insecurities. I'm like,
yeah,
dude, I'm just
yeah,
talking general. But when you
yeah,
talk general, people get really annoyed because they can't interpret it's not about them all the time.
yeah. Well, and that again, the beautiful part about that is what it shows. Their ego that gets involved, and you are talking about me. No, I said that the fucking sky was blue.
Yeah,
What you heard and how somehow the sky was blue affected you and your bullshit. Check yourself. Look in the fucking mirror, you idiot.
yeah, for sure.
The world does not revolve around us.
Yeah. If at all, we may be just a blip on the radar.
Oh
Something.
fuck, we're so insignificant, and that's where I think people with egos really need to fucking have their reality smashed inside of them, because we are so insignificant. Nobody is special. There's nobody on this planet that is so special that we're more special than anybody else.
Except Elon
That's
Musk.
it.
He's pretty
Who?
Elon
Who?
Musk.
Nah. Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
a valid point is that everyone wants to be special and it's like you're not special until you do something significant to prove to other people that maybe you are a little different or special. Because we always look up like Elon Musk or Steve Jobs and it's like you're not them and you're probably never going to be them. So stop trying to
Right.
be them, you know?
But okay, but I'll say this: when you're around, so let's use Elon Musk, okay? And he's a big name. Lots of people are listening to this, and they fucking, oh my god, Elon Musk. When you go to a 4-year-old who's got terminal cancer,
Mhm.
okay, and I walk up to that 4-year-old, and I've got a Batman toy,
Mhm.
okay, because that kid likes Batman. I always like putting Batman
Marcus
in his.
likes Batman too.
Marcus likes Batman. And you sit there and you're like, okay. And then you show the video of Elon Musk and he's doing his cool things. And maybe not 4, even 10. Somebody who knows, somebody who's old enough to know who Elon Musk is.
Mhm.
And you're looking at them on their level and you're doing things that makes them happy. Then my significance to them is special. So, and I have a problem with false idling, and I've been guilty of that. Being in the martial arts, you have tons of false idols. You fucking put people on pedestals, and you start to sit there and think that somebody's fucking awesome. And the truth is, once you get to know them, they're fucking assholes like you, and they're not special at all.
Yeah.
Right? We all bleed shit and cry the exact same way, so nobody's special. But if you can make someone feel special,
Mhm.
then your job is done. You've done a good job. If I meet your mother, okay, and I walk in and she, I make her laugh and I make her have a giggle, and you're like, oh my God, Marcus, you're such an idiot. Oh my God, my mother's laughing in a way I haven't heard her laugh in 30 years.
Yeah.
And I walk out of your house with a full belly and we're laughing and she's genuinely happier than before I got in that house, then my job is done. I've done a good thing.
Yeah.
And that's all that we should be doing. We should be serving our fucking hello, fellow human beings. I should be making the lives of those around me better by authentic truths.
Mhm.
Okay. And I can say that because I've been on the other spectrum where I've made life miserable for people.
Mhm.
And if I have a choice by how I've done things in the past and how I do things now, I like how I do things now because I walk away and people are happier after I've left than before I got there, versus in the past where they're thankful I'm gone because I've made their life a fucking absolute shit show hell.
Well, I definitely need to work on that still. I got
Well,
few years.
it's not too late.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I'm not saying it is. Now, sort of on that note, because I know, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were heavily involved in the IKMF disabled Krav Maga program or
Adaptive, yeah.
adaptive Krav
Yeah.
Maga. So
Yeah.
maybe talk about that a little, because it's sort of
Yeah.
on the similar sort of path of thinking.
Well, my son has special needs. He's got cerebral palsy and he's a very severe case of it. He's a quadriplegic with cerebral palsy. So the subject matter of those with special needs is one that obviously is an emotional button for me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that being said, teaching Krav Maga to people who have physical or mental challenges is something that for me is something that I'm thankful to God for, because it makes me feel like a better human being, and not because I'm teaching them. I'm selfishly a better human because of what they teach me. They show me the truth of what life really is about, what's important. And what's really important in my life, because it's not everybody else's, is the ability to get a hug, to smile, an authentic smile, and to see somebody's eyes light up when they're doing something that the normal kids get to do. You know, I go to throw a slap to somebody's face and they have a challenge and they're able to do a 360 and they're able to throw a palm heel strike. And the fact that their life, quality of their life has gone up 100% just with those sheer movements, and they're happy, but it's me and seeing what true joy looks like, because I don't know what true joy is, because I got evil in my heart and I'm angry a lot of the times. When I can get that true joy, I selfishly steal that and I keep it for myself because it makes me a better human being. And that's where adaptive Krav Maga has been for us in the IKMF, has been the best course that I ever took in my lifetime. The best course I ever took was the adaptive course. It changed everything about how I teach. It changed a whole bunch of other things, not to get too deep and scare people, but just on a teaching level, it changed me completely. Changed how I view Krav Maga. It changed how I am and how I interact. Oh, it was the fucking best thing I've ever done.
Yeah, because it's an interesting topic, because so you can approach it, and obviously it depends on what the person has and what's going on. Because like I have a friend who lost his leg when he was younger, but he was a adaptive jiu-jitsu world champion, right? So with some people, you can relatively teach them the same stuff as what word do you prefer for like abled or whatever?
Oh, but well, okay. So you got a guy that lost his leg from birth, like
one more accident, like
yeah. But I mean, he's how old is he now?
Probably mid-40s, I guess. He lost it when he was like 2 or something. Yeah.
When did he lose his leg?
Like 2 or 3, I think, something like that.
Right. So basically, as far as he knows, his normal is to have a leg missing.
Yeah.
So you throw him, you say, okay, you got to run track, you got to do all the. For people that have challenges at birth, to them it's not any big deal. They're just like, fuck, whatever. I just got to find a better creative way to deal with things.
Yeah.
When you're again, if you have somebody that's in a wheelchair, okay, they're stuck in that wheelchair, they're paralyzed or whatever, they know who they are and how susceptible they are to violence. They're not really learning Krav Maga because they think they're gonna fucking kick somebody like yours ass. They don't know that. They know where they are in the food chain. This is about improving the quality of their life. This is about them smiling and feeling good from the inside because they can do something that they thought was impossible for them. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
Many times I've said it in every course in the last 10 years, for sure. I've been saying it. Most of the stuff I teach has nothing to do with Krav Maga.
Yeah.
The Krav Maga is fucking, that's the end result. I don't give a shit about the Krav Maga. Anybody can do fucking Krav Maga.
Yeah.
It's changing the inside of you and looking through new eyes at what you're capable of doing and changing something you thought that was unchangeable. And when you're dealing with adaptive athletes, listen, I don't have to teach an adaptive athlete heart, determination, and fortitude. I don't have to teach them that because they got so much of that. We could fucking use some of that.
Yeah.
I have to teach them finding out ways that they can do the Krav Maga. And the cool part about that is I'm no longer in a fucking box.
Yeah.
I got a guy with one leg missing. Okay, well, you know what we're not doing? We're not doing front kicks.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You might attack somebody with that little nub of yours, but for the most part, everything's going to be done from the waist up.
Yeah.
So I don't care what you can't do. I care about what you can do. That's all that matters to me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's just how you approach injury. Like, oh, my arm hurts today. Okay, don't use that arm today. Use the other one.
Well, yeah, it's not fucking rocket science.
Yeah.
So when it comes to teaching and Krav Maga and all that fucking stuff, what matters most is that what can you do? And then what you can do, we maximize that. That's all I give a shit about.
Yeah. Well, you said, I think, particularly from the Israelis, I think one of the things Krav Maga is not a martial art. However, that does not mean you can't bring in aspects of it. And the thing they were saying that a lot of what you teach isn't Krav Maga, and I think that's lacking in a lot of Krav Maga schools. Is let's build people up. I try to do my best. I'm not the best at that aspect, but I'm trying, because I think it's super important that people should come and be better versions of themselves, because not everyone's going to be the top athlete. Not everyone is going to do that. And it's just about being better a little bit. And I find the various schools of Krav Maga that are focused on the aggression, and if we're talking, we're not doing Krav Maga properly. And I think that aspect is lacking from a lot of organizations or schools.
Well, and I agree, because of the fact that Krav Maga is viewed as something that is about ass kicking and groin stomping and all that, and I'm cool with that part of it.
Yeah.
It's it's the same as shooting. Okay, you go and you learn. You have a handgun. You learn the fundamentals, and you pull the trigger and everything, bang, and you're like, wow, okay, and that's great. But are you doing anything in those things? Skateboarding, I don't give a shit what the subject is. Are you doing something that's improving the quality of your life inside?
Yeah.
And are you walking out of the classes? Are you walking out of the classes in a way that is making you a better, I don't want to say a better human being, but a better version, like you said, a better version of you? Yeah. Are you? And if not, then you should be. And as an instructor, my job is to make you the best version of you. That's the job, right?
Yeah. Well, I'd say one of the proudest moments of this person's still around. So if they're listening, I'm not going to use your name, but they came to me as a teenager where they had severe anxiety, couldn't talk to people or be around people. Okay. And I built them up to be the point where they could teach in front of a class. And that was
outstanding.
The days that I should quit this school and shut it down. It's like, no, I can't do that because of things like that.
Right.
Now, my style is very different, and a lot of people hate how I teach, so they don't come. But it's like that in itself, to me, is worth continuing doing, right? Stuff like that. I'm sure similar for you.
Yep, agree 1,000%. 1,000%.
Yeah.
The only thing that I've got a fair share of people out there that are not big Marcus Torgerson fans.
Well, that'll be for anyone, by the way. Everyone hates someone.
Right. Yeah. So if they don't hate you, you haven't done something. You haven't made enough of a stand. But we talked about when we're dead, right? We're dead, and we want to sit there and what are we going to be remembered for? I'm more happy about the fact that the amount of people that hate me versus the amount of people that got something positive from my teaching, the scale is going to be more in the favor of people who got something good out of my presence in their life. Mm-hmm. And the people that didn't, fuck them. Why do I care about that? That's like thinking about the girl that doesn't want to date you. Why the fuck am I going to think about that?
There's a lot of wasted energy on that, by the way. A lot of young teens.
I agree. But again, I might want to find out why so that I can improve. But once I find out that information and improve, fuck it. What do I give a shit? I don't care about who doesn't like me. I'm going to spend the energy on the people that do like me and that do want to be in my life. Fuck the people that don't. Jesus, life's too goddamn short.
Yeah, I think that mimicked something I heard recently was who cares about the opinions of people that you don't even respect? The people you respect are the people whose opinions should matter the most, kind of thing.
Yep. Yeah. I'm going to steal Christian Bale's line. It's if you've got a problem with me, call me. If you don't have my number, obviously you're not that important to me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true, right?
Right?
You're unable to contact,
fuck them.
With students, I know for a fact, I'm sure this is all martial arts instructors, the students that come in and start talking big about how much they're going to train.
Yeah.
Once you just go up, and it's like, people talk too much shit as far as they believe their own bullshit. And it's the same, like, dude, don't tell me why you're not going to come. Just say it's not that important to you. So
just say it. Yeah.
It's
not a priority.
You're not that important to me. Like, it's
just, at least own it.
Yeah.
And sit there and say, hey, listen, I can't come and train because Watching my fucking Netflix is more important. Okay, right on. But nobody will say that because they know it's such an asshole thing to do and say.
Yeah.
But whatever, man. You know, I need, as a school owner, I need 1,000 people that talk tough and pay their dues and never show up. I need 1,000 of those so that the 2 people that come every fucking class are the ones that I never make money off of because they earn their membership. You know, if they're paying $90 a month and they come every single day, I'm making about fucking 10 cents per class off of them. I need those other people so that I can spend the time with those awesome, beautiful students who really want to improve.
Yeah, makes sense for sure.
Yeah.
Now, question: is this website of yours brand new, or has it been around for a while? The Marcus.
No. It's brand new. It was started, and it's fucking so funny. I didn't have any like website or anything. I didn't do anything with it because I don't. Even though I like to talk, I actually don't like to shine the light on myself that much. And this book that I was in, the owner of the book, the guy who did the book, said, he goes, I'll never forget, his name's Clint Emerson. And he phoned me and he's like, all right, book's coming out this time. You have 100 days to get a fucking website together so that people, when the book is done, will have somewhere to go to find you. 100 days. And I was like, oh my God. I panicked like a bastard. Thankfully, a good friend of mine, also from Vancouver, Brent Limer, he was like, don't worry about it. We'll square it away. And so now we have the website and it worked well. But unless I had that gun to my head and had this guy, like, you got 100 days, get your shit together, I would never have done it.
Yeah, no, it's tough. Like I've been, for me, for example, I've been wanting to go online for a long time, but I'm like, how do I do it? And COVID forced me to like get stuff online, get it out there. And I've been working on the online content because that's the future. Like, especially in Vancouver, well, right now I don't have very many students, but let's say the max students for Krav I could probably get at any one time is like 100 people. But that's not enough to really live in this fucking expensive city. So it's like, got to go global and make your voice out there. But it's a beautiful that you have for sure. What does it say on the main page? Walk with peace in your heart, love in your soul, and violence in your head.
Yep. That's pretty much sums up everything that my when it comes to teaching. I usually just send them to those words because that's exactly how I feel.
Yeah, it sums you up. Now the 100 deadly skills thing, like, tell me about that because I saw it on your feed, but I wasn't really sure.
So there's a guy named Clint Emerson, retired SEAL, spy, fucking full on, just badass dude. Well, he came up with these books, I'd say about 3 or 4 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, called 100 Deadly Skills. And the idea is that there's skills to help with certain things. Like, my favorite one is how to dispose of a body. It always makes me laugh. You don't really need to know how to do that, but how to get out of handcuffs, how to make improvised bulletproof situations. There's an urban one of how to, if you're in a foreign country, best way to try to make sure you don't get kidnapped. And they're all done in drawings, right? They're all done in hand drawings by this awesome artist. So the third book, the one that he did that I'm in, is called the 100 Deadly Skills Combat Edition, in which he got 16 like fucking legends. 15 legends and me. And like Tony Blauer's in there, like some really big fucking names. Now, here's the cool part. We still have the drawings. Okay. This comic book artist named Tom Mandrake did the drawings. And this time, though, all the bad guys, all the people that we're beating up were historically horrific individuals. So my section, the drawer, the artist, every time the bad guy gets beat up, it's Hitler. So like my legacy is done. Like I could die a happy man now because I'm palm healing striking. I'm taking a gun defense. I'm kicking the shit out of Hitler. So first of all, that's one cool part of the book. Now the second part, the technology part, is there's QR codes on every page. And when you hover your phone over the QR code, it directs you to videos of every technique in the book.
Oh, that's cool.
Very fucking cool.
Yeah.
Now, an offshoot of the 100 Deadly Skills is there's a network called the Warrior Poet Society Network. And it's basically a guy named John Lovell who's fed up with the society's censorship of
Everything.
information. So he came up with this Warrior Poet Society Network. Now, originally, when Clint did this book, he traveled all around America, meeting up with each of us during COVID, of all fucking things. And he originally was going to sell it to Netflix. Netflix had been curious about this fucking Navy SEAL traveling around the fucking country for these different skills. Netflix skipped on it. So Warrior Poet
because
Society
they realized, not to interrupt, but they realized that the people that they're talking about do not agree with the politics that are at Netflix. And
that's right. Yes. Yeah. That's really probably the real reason why. So we ended up doing these episodes, which are every Friday night, and they're like 30-minute episodes. And where he interviews us, and then we do our techniques. So there's been some spill off of since being on this book that's been very cool. Like on a professional, egotistical standpoint, it's been very cool to be a part of that and to be a part of these fucking absolute legends. Like, I mean, fucking legends. Do you know Five Finger Death Punch, the band?
I've heard of it, but I'm not like.
Okay. Well, the owner, the lead singer, is a guy named Zoltan, who's this immigrant from I think Czech Republic. I could be fucking that up. Sorry for anybody who's like, no, he's from a different country. Anyways, he's very much a pro-America, he knows what socialism really is about. Yeah. But he's a judo black belt and a black belt in jiu-jitsu. And his girlfriend is one of the Gracies.
Right.
So this guy's fucking like, not only is he a true rock star, I mean a real rock star, but he's also badass at fucking being doing judo and jiu-jitsu. So I'm just going to say this to everybody. Go, no matter what, if you're into martial arts, this combat edition, there's so much great information in it. The $25 you spend, it's worth $2,500, $25,000. You couldn't possibly go and learn from all the guys in this book in 1 year. Like, it's impossible. Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah. It's my highlight of my teaching professional situation.
Yeah, for sure. From the days of teaching in a not quite finished building in a location that's hard to get to.
That's right, in Burnaby. Yep. Funny how things turn out.
Yeah, it's a shame that didn't work out. It's Vancouver is very. You see which schools are succeeding and which schools are not, and which are coasting, and it's like I never would have thought that one would have succeeded or that one would have gone under, and unfortunately because of the idiotic government here, several schools have gone under. For sure in the jiu-jitsu community, Krav Maga is kind of like there's not that many schools anyway, so we all kind of survive regardless. Right. But it's like, you get the ones that know how to do the marketing and the connections, they explode and cater towards the people who aren't really willing to learn the proper stuff are the ones that do the best often. Not always, but quite often.
Well, I mean, and it works. Yeah. They're still in business. So that's where, you just have to be authentic to yourself and be okay with whatever you're doing. Because if you're okay with it, everything will work out in the end.
Oh, pretty much. Yeah. It's definitely been a journey for me since then to now. Like, if you'd asked me being a kid, I don't know about you, it's like, would you be teaching? First of all, I didn't respect teachers growing up, so there's that. And then it's like, it turns out I'm actually pretty good at it. And then I started doing this. I never would have thought this is what I'm doing. And of course, everyone's like, you should be a lawyer or a doctor. And I probably could have, but I'm just like, I don't want to do that stuff.
Yeah, that's not you. Yeah. No, I never would have in my lifetime thought that I'd be doing what I did and doing for a living.
Yeah. And I'm just curious, because I just thought of it, because you are with IKMF, but do you ever cross-train with other organizations, or are you sticking pretty much?
I mean, well, when I go to these countries and I'm working for, I'm doing my job, I open the doors to anybody. When I'm doing seminars or if there's training available, if anybody wants to come, I don't give a fuck. I know I'm blessed that I know most of the big names in the Krav Maga world. Yeah. And if I'm in their country or in their city, I'll go and fucking break bread with them. And if there's a training opportunity, I'm definitely going to fucking do it. The truth is that when I do my job, I'm on Groundhog Day. I fly in, go to the hotel, then go to the training place hotel for however many fucking days or weeks I'm in that country. And then I fly out. So, people have said, well, when do you get a chance to train? Well, unless there's a class going on after my course that I can dive into, I'll do it. But if I got to go and travel 2 hours to some guy's school to go and train, I'm already putting in 10, 12-hour days teaching these courses. It's just not going to happen. So it's not that I don't want to, it's just not logistically feasible.
Yeah. A couple of things that, like, when I travel, I always bring a gi. And of course, if I travel with my girlfriend, my idea that I'm going to get all this training in is not not always there. I fit in at least one, but that is certainly something that happens. I've noticed this, is that I've had some instructors under me, and then it's like they stop doing when they start teaching, and then they get upset because they enjoy the doing more than they enjoy the teaching. And then and I've started telling you, if you want to teach, you have to you might not like it yet, but you have to enjoy it doing both, because then you just end up with these miserable teachers who don't even enjoy that aspect. For me training, to be honest, right now I train more jiu-jitsu than anything, because me, that's what I get the enjoyment. Like, I would say my passion is Krav Maga. My love is jiu-jitsu, if that makes sense.
There you go. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Like, because you teach instructors all over the world, like, do you run into that issue, or did the instructor?
Oh yeah, I think that's just a symptom of human behavior. Like, that is a human behavior. You want to get to the goal of being an instructor, and then what it took to become an instructor, then you rest on your laurels, and then you don't end up doing it, and you wonder why your students surpass you or you start sucking, is because you don't train.
Yeah.
That whole thing about always be a white belt is, I think it should be applied to every aspect of our lives, but definitely no matter what, as an instructor, you're always a white belt.
Yeah.
I may have a bit of information that I can pass on to others, but at the end of the day, I'm no different than anybody else.
Yeah.
Like, I am no fucking different. I happen to wear some cool fucking different colored uniform or whatever than you, but at the end of the day, I'm no different than you. I got to learn just like everybody else. Fact.
Yeah. I actually don't have I hope my students are all better than me, because that means I did something right as an instructor, at least I think. And I always found, like, some people, I think the guys who are like the natural, or girls, the natural athletes who are always at the top, and like they cannot in their head accept someone being better than them all of a sudden, and they drives them a little nuts sometimes.
Well, that type of ego is unacceptable.
Yeah.
When I got my black belt in karate, I remember my instructor coming up, and I said something about, I don't think I'll be as good as you or whatever. And he was adamantly angry. He was like, if you're not better than me, when he got a black belt, so we're comparing black belts when I got mine and he got his, if I'm not better than him, then he failed as an instructor. And I think that's the bottom line. If you as my student are not better than me at that level of development, then yes, I suck, and I should get a fucking slap in the face, because otherwise then I'm stifling you, and to make myself feel better, that's some bullshit right there. People like that should get slapped.
There's a lot of them.
Well, yeah, they should all get slapped. So I've seen it way too much. It's fucking bullshit.
Yeah, ego in martial arts. I just wrote a blog series on ego in martial arts, and it's like the idea of like Bushido code. I'm like, do you know where Bushido code came from? It's not where you think it came from, and it's like, back in the day, the samurai would. You want me to do what? I'm not gonna die for that. Like, I mean, obviously in the Japanese way they did it, but there's a lot of myths and ego delusions in martial arts. Often you'll get from Asians, the traditional Asian martial arts, very respectful. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? I just heard about a gym versus gym where they put a guy in the hospital and ruined his MMA career because he said the wrong thing to him. Don't talk to me about bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah. The martial arts community in general, I will always kind of have my my own opinions about it, because literally martial arts has been something that I've ate, slept, and drank for over 40 years. And whenever we start to put anybody on a pedestal, that's where you're going to have a fucking problem. Yeah. Now I've been able to train with Dan Inosanto. Okay. Like, that guy's 80 something years old, legitimate fucking legend. That is the most humble motherfucker I've ever seen in my life. And if I can be one 1/1000th of an instructor that he is, then I can die a happy man. Because the egos that come in with martial arts, first of all, the fact that we're putting ego and martial arts, we're talking about human behavior and human interaction. Ego is the killer for our species in general. In general. So whether it's the lawyer, martial artist, cop, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you're a fucking asshole, and an asshole is an asshole, and it doesn't matter what we're doing or when we're doing it. You're an asshole.
Yeah.
And fuck you.
You know,
doesn't matter.
I did a seminar with Dan and Francis Fong. It was an interesting seminar. You know, you just get to meet these people that you see all over the place. And
yeah,
of course, I cannot dual wield collie sticks, no matter how hard I try.
No. But, and again, for me, it wasn't about the what he was teaching. I didn't go to learn Eskrima or Nice or any of that other stuff. I was watching him conduct a seminar, and my job, the only thing I wanted was to learn a better version of how to give these seminars and workshops. And I got that tenfold. It fucking was fantastic. And that's a big reason why I go to most of these like workshops or seminars. I'm usually not going for the technique necessarily, because at the end of the day, a punch is a punch, a kick is a kick. Maybe you've got a different way of teaching it that I can learn and steal from, because that's what I do. But other than that, I don't need to learn fucking a new way to throw a punch. It hasn't changed in 10,000 years, and it's not going to change in the future 10,000. A punch is a punch, a kick is a kick.
Yeah, no, that's true. I do that because, like, learning how to teach is a hard skill, and you pick up little tricks and things from various. I'll go to Krav Maga instructors who I'm like, yeah, I could kick the shit out of them, but they're teaching something that I never thought of it like that. And
yep.
Really,
and so their job is done. They've done a good job. Then if you learn something from it, then fucking right on. They've been successful in what they were supposed to do.
Yeah, I feel like for one of the reasons, well, there's many reasons Krav Maga struggles in North America is that, and I'm not for competition. I do not support competition for Krav Maga because of history, but people want to learn from the best, and we don't really per se have that because the average person can't go see who the best is per se. But I think that's the wrong approach. It's like who's the best at developing you, but the average person doesn't. They just don't see it like that. And so I occasionally get athletic students who they don't feel challenged because there's no outlet for them, and they get bored and leave. And it's like, well, I think you missed the point. But it's like, what do you do with that?
Yeah, but and again,
I'm in Surrey, you can hear.
No, well, yeah. But I think that the biggest problem with and again, you get somebody who's like, well, I'm not feeling challenged or doing enough. Okay, well, as a teacher, my job is to stimulate you. But my main job is to protect or educate you on how to fucking protect yourself. And if you think that you're that good because you're athletic and that you can, bob and weave and do all these cool things, awesome. And then when you get a Heineken bottle from the back of your head and they split you open, you show me how much your athletics are going to fucking help you then when you're in a fetal position, shitting and pissing your pants because you're getting boot stomped. Yeah. So again, those that are going to learn from you will learn, and those that don't want to learn will go off into their whatever their journey is, man. You can't save the world.
Oh, definfinitely not. Not right now. So I'm just like, learn martial arts and gets guns has been my theme for the last year or so.
Yeah. It's sad but true.
Yeah, and it's like, I am super pissed that there's so many people who think you don't need guns, and I'm just like, listen, it could sit on the shelf for, I wish you would train with it. I hope you train with it.
Yeah.
But if you need it and don't have it and can't get it because a certain dipshit PM with good hair is trying to take them away from you, like people are so like, some of my family, they think I'm nuts because they're like, oh, guns are bad. I'm like, why? Like, what's the problem? They just have them there. Yeah. Well, you're in the States, you can just run around.
Yeah. Well, listen, we can't really say that because everything's here in the States, it's a shit show as well. So
that's true. Yeah.
Right. So, and I think that the hardest part I have with regards to anybody from a political standpoint that tries to tell any man or woman what they can or cannot do to fortify themselves safety wise is you're not going to be there to save me. So who the fuck are you to try to tell me how I can protect me or my family?
Yeah.
And that's an argument, arguing about it is ridiculous, because whatever somebody's opinions are, that's one thing that you will never change my opinion on. You can never tell me how someone should be allowed to protect their family or not protect their family. If you are so anti-violence and you just will not do it, and you believe that everything is going to work out, good for you. I'm not going to try to change your mind about it. Do what you need to do. I respect what you need to say. Do the same for me, and then we'll live a good life, because not everybody's supposed to get along or believe. That's human beings they've agreed to disagree for years. When do we have fucking problems? When we've not agreed to disagree and stood our ground and said, no, this is the way it must be. Well, then that's when you get fucking bullshit problems.
Oh yeah.
Fuck 'em.
Yeah. I'm like, we don't need more laws. We just need simple, don't be asshole laws. That's it.
Yeah.
Keep it to the simple
And
one.
being in mind that human beings are always going to be, there's always going to be assholes and fucking idiots in our society. That's just the way that we are.
Yeah.
It's been that way forever.
For sure. So we're coming up on 3 hours. No rush.
All right.
Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you'd like to talk about?
No, I mean, we covered the book, which is obviously from a professional standpoint. I hope that everybody will go and buy the book, because it's and you can get it from Amazon or Barnes and Noble. I don't know if we don't Chapters, I guess, would have it.
Do they even exist? Real bookstores? I don't even know.
I don't even talk about that. But you can get it from Amazon, and it's user friendly. Everything in there there's nobody on earth that will get the book and be like, there's nothing in there for me. Everybody will get something from it. And if nothing else, I'm kicking Hitler's ass, so fucking support that.
A real Nazi, not just
a real Nazi, yeah, not like the other ones.
Yeah, and so MarcusTorgerson.com.
Yep.
Put it in the.
Yep. And then the socials are my name on the socials. I'm easy to find. Everything's public, so it's not like I have a very transparent social media platforms.
Yeah, as I can see, it's good.
Yeah.
Authentic, right? Okay, so I'll hit end on the recording, and thanks for joining me.
Well, thank you.
You're listening to The Warrior's Day. Brought to you by Urban Tactics Krav Maga, turning lambs into lions.